Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of I'll Call You Right Back podcast with me, your host. My name is Chad Medved. I'm standing up for this intro. That means the energy's different this week. I'm excited about it. First thing is first, Turner Dairy Farms, brand new collaboration. With who? Page's Dairy down in Southside. Legendary ice cream spot, legendary dairy, legendary dairy in the city. Two big name brands collide to give you the chocolate milkshake, limited edition Turner's Milk. I have not had it yet. Very excited to try it. My spot didn't have it yet. I don't know why they didn't have it. They're usually the plug. They're usually there early. They got it all early all the time, but I haven't seen it yet. But my lady Ruth got an eye out for me. She's gonna let me know when it's there. But Turner Dairy Farms, Page's Dairy Mart. You got to go out there and get it while you can. It's gonna sell out quick. But obviously, I mean, you're from Pittsburgh. You've heard of Page's. You heard of Turner's. What more can you want? It's a yin-splosion, as Mikey and Bob call it. Couple weeks it's been since I have done an intro. You know, I took a couple weeks off after episode 200 with Sally Wiggin. Epic. Had the episode 200 party at Streets on Carson. Epic. Can't appreciate everyone enough for coming out. I'm just thankful for it. Excited to keep grinding. And, that's why everyone's here this week. So before I give the rundown, I kind of wrote something on the promo post that I post every week, and people were kind of pumped. They hit me up and they were like, it was a dope write-up. So I wanted to read it on here. It's fitting. Picture this. It's an early June morning in 2003. Your alarm starts buzzing. You roll over and realize that the beginning of summer is here. It's Kennywood Day. You roll out of bed and jump in the shower and do what you need to do. Thoughts of your day cut quickly like someone flipping through the channels of a TV. You run to your room and open up your closet and pull it out. The Kennywood fit. You start dressing yourself like you're getting ready for a fashion show. The freshest kicks ever, the flyest clothes ever, the Curve cologne, the ankle socks, and the super strong hold gel to keep that spiked hair straight after a ride on the raging rapids. It's Kennywood Day. You figure out whose mom is taking you there and picking you up. You got a discount school ticket and $40 in your Velcro wallet. You roll into the gates and get in line for the security check. You're getting impatient. It's taken too long. It's Kennywood Day. Once you make it through, everything goes black. Over the next 9 hours, you have no recollection of what happened. You're exhausted. Your money is gone. You just have faint memories of riding the bumper cars, eating a corn dog and funnel cake, winning a stuffed gorilla, and your socks are soaking wet and making that sound. The sun is almost all the way down. You could see parents and kids walking towards the exit. You know that all good things must come to an end eventually. You meet up with everyone in your party and you start heading back. You look up and you see the Goodnight Heart. It's Kennywood Day. Now, the reason everyone is here this week, I sit down with another legendary name in the city. I sit down with one of the most familiar faces of Kennywood Park. His name is Nick Paradise. Me and Nick have a unique relationship. Back in the day, whenever I decided to propose to my wife in a typical Yinzer fashion, I wanted to propose to her at Kennywood, right? So I hit up the social media director at the time, who was Nick Paradise, who is my guest this week, and I hit him up and I'm like, "Yo, dude, I would love to propose to my wife. I asked her to be my girlfriend at the top of the hill on the Steel Phantom because I'm corny and I'm about to propose to her. So there's no other way to do it than at Kennywood." And obviously he was pumped about it, and he went above and beyond and did everything he could to make my night amazing. And me and Nick have kept in touch ever since. So I had Nick on, and we talk about all kinds of stuff. We talk about how Nick got involved in, it's always interesting to me that people that get involved in like the PR realm, because like I feel like I would have been kind of perfect for it, and I didn't even really think about it whenever I was in school. But we talk about Nick's journey through school, how he ended up at Kennywood. We talk about, we're talking about all kinds of good Kennywood stuff. They are currently doing the biggest facelift they've done at the park in quite some time. They are reinstalling the kangaroo, a little bit of a controversial topic. I talked to him about that. We talk about, the memories that Kennywood has brought for all of us as children and all of our family members since, and how big of a place it holds in our heart. And, the whole nine, we talk about it all. I even ruffle some feathers, and I bring up the infamous ketchup incident of, I think it was 2019. But, we're out here doing good interviews with great people, and I'm excited about it. This was a long time coming. Kennywood, big deal for me. I've been there a million times, and I was just excited to get him in here and kind of learn about, how the sausage is made, so to speak. And Nick was fantastic. He was a great sport to let me just ask all these fanatic questions about a place that is so close to my heart. But quit talking your ear off. Without further ado, episode 201 of I'll Call You Right Back podcast with Nick Paradise of Kennywood Park.
Telephone.
Hello?
Telephone.
I'll call you right back. I'll call you right back.
Telephone.
I'll Call You Right Back podcast. Toss the headphones on, you'll get a little bit more immersed in it. It's a better you get the vibe of it.
Absolutely. No.
It's how's the volume on that? Is that all right?
Sounds good. Yeah.
All right. Early morning on the weekends, this is what I try to do. I usually will record people Monday evenings, and it starts to, I almost like don't know why I do it to myself, because like I work my regular job and then I come home and then I do another 4 hours of work.
Yeah.
So it tends to be a beast, but
yeah,
I appreciate you driving over early morning on a Saturday. And I know that Kennywood is, pretty busy right now.
It's gearing up.
So I was watching, I was doing my research. I see that there is like a crazy amount of construction happening right now, basically like overhauling everything. Let's see the new paint, new fountains in the front. I hear there's going to be new archways, you guys are doing all kinds of stuff there.
It's a big facelift. It's a lot of work. And it's needed. It's been a little bit since it did, this kind of extensive stuff. And even it's been interesting because we've had people come in, new leadership in some spots with fresh eyes.
Yeah.
But also a great deal of respect for the park and the brand. And sometimes that wasn't always the case, looking further back in the years.
Yeah.
Because it's got to be this balance. You can't just stick with what's always been good. It can't be, Rick Seebeck's 1988 Kennywood.
Yeah.
Like, I know some people want it to be that, which I get because that was, immortalized. But it's got to evolve and go forward
and keep up with the times.
But it can't run too far ahead, and it's got to, it's got to know its roots where it came from, and continue to represent that too. So it's a real tightrope walk, and it's not easy.
Is this one of the bigger overhauls that you guys done in the last years that you can remember?
Yeah, I mean and I got basically that same question. Are we going now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got that same question when we had the media tour a few days ago, and we've done extensive projects in a single off season for new rides, right? I mean, we just put in 2 new themed lands in the last few years, so those were very extensive, but they were kind of concentrated to that corner, and this is much more expansive, and it's not just about overturning a few buildings, but it's changing the whole atmosphere of the park. It's not the entire park, but it's a really big stretch from, the parking areas all the way down, almost every building in that, what I would call, doesn't actually have an official name, but the main entrance midway from the tunnel all the way down to the lagoon,
like by the old mill and everything,
past the old mill.
There's not a name for that.
There's not an official name for that. Not a lot of the midways have a name. The one where the bumper cars runs is, you'll find some things that'll call that Kenny Lane. But that's, it needs to be that's like the real
that's inside baseball.
Like there's some people that could tell you a lot more stuff than I could.
How long have you been there?
I'm going into my 8th season now.
8th.
Yeah.
Now for you two, and you're the marketing director, is that the right term?
No. So I am,
I apologize.
No, it's all good. It's all good. My title now is Director of Corporate Communications. So I'm actually not just representing Kennywood, but the other 2 parks in the region. And then we have about 20 sister properties around the United States, and actually one in Sydney, Australia, that I ostensibly oversee for communication stuff.
Wow.
So that's been about a year and change now that I've had that role, but I continued to do my job at Kennywood, which was, as Director of Public Relations and Social Media for most of that time. I did spend about 15 months as the marketing director. It was supposed to be a couple months interim, keeping a seat warm, and then COVID happened. And it turned into almost a year and a half, which was a great experience. I shouldn't say. I don't want to make that sound like COVID was a great experience, but
I know.
Obviously, it was just a lot of learning from a professional standpoint. And
I'm sure everyone has to deal with things that like no one ever intended for this to happen. No one was ever prepared for this.
Oh gosh.
So I'm sure everyone in the world is kind of figuring out how to navigate this weird factor in our lives now.
It's
pretty crazy, especially for like a public park, like an amusement park. You have a bunch of people that are coming around, so it's obviously in the forefront of your mind. I'm curious though, so where did you grow up? Like, are you from around here?
So I grew up in Verona.
Okay.
I went to Riverview School District, so it's a lot of Verona would go to Penn Hills. But it was Verona and Oakmont. And Riverview's the little school district, single A, stuck between Plum, Penn Hills, and Fox Chapel on the other side of the river. So I got kind of that small town existence, and one of the few towns in communities that's on a nice grid system here in Western Pennsylvania. So that was really nice. You had like the Main Street experience and stuff like that. So I grew up here. My dad still lives in the house I grew up in. I live 5 minutes away from him now.
That's awesome.
But then I went to Penn State. I needed to get at least like 2 hours away from my parents.
That's like that's the perfect amount where you're like far enough away where they're not just like, you don't feel that they're connected, but like you could still go home whenever you want.
Right. Exactly. So I did that. And then, I did leave. I wanted to get out of see different parts of the country. So I spent 2 years in the West, 2 years in the South. And then at that point, my son was actually born when we were living in Georgia with my first son. So he was about 6 months old when we moved back to Pittsburgh, and we've been here for 10 years now. It'll be 10 years this summer that we've been back.
Wow. It's it got to be a good enough place to want to move back, right?
Yeah, it is. And that was like partly getting some of that perspective, seeing other parts of the country. And you come to appreciate even just like the rolling hills and the rivers and stuff like that, and the trees.
We just have like a little bit of everything.
Yeah. And I lived in Savannah. I skipped winter for a couple years.
Yeah.
And I will tell you that I will take winter over, those summers when I usually wear glasses. I remember the first we drove cross country from moving from, Washington to Georgia, and we like got into Atlanta or into Georgia at night. And we stayed in the hotel, and the next morning, come out of the hotel with my glasses on. And the second I opened the door, fogged up my glasses.
Worst.
I was like, what have I walked into? It was like 3 straight weeks of 90 plus in the community where I was at when we first got there. So
that was one of my first like adult purchases was LASIK, because like my eyes, like if I would take my glasses off, I would not be able to see who you were.
I'm the same.
Yeah, it's terrible. And I got LASIK done probably like 6-8 months before COVID happened. So it was like in the perfect, happenstance that I got that, because if I had to wear masks with my glasses,
it's the worst.
Worse. And and I can't like do contacts. It's just, they don't stay in my eyes. Terrible. But, so as a young kid, I'm curious, like, your memories of Kennywood as a child, do you have like, fond memories as most of us do?
I do. I have some. It's my true story is actually, I feel like it's kind of sad.
You have to tell me your true story. You can't be like, I used to go to Kennywood all the time. I love it.
Yeah. I mean, I did love it.
Yeah.
I don't want to, but the things that you like stick out from your childhood and your memories, right? Because I was an only child until my brother's almost 10 years younger than me. So I grew up like an only child until I wasn't even that. So one of my like biggest memories is like Kennywood days coming. And like, who's going to be your ride partner?
Oh,
and
yeah.
I didn't have like a built-in ride partner. I lived in like little, the neighborhood where I lived, they had a lot of like people that had like a sibling close. So it was like, okay, they're going to ride with their sibling, especially when they're young. And so it's like, and I had to find someone. So a lot of my memories is like that stress of like, well, it's not going to, if it's not like a cousin or stuff like that, like who's going to be my ride buddy for the day?
That was my cousins. Well, I was lucky enough to have some cousins that were the same age and ended up like, but we were odd. There was 3 of us. So, it was like, one of us would wait out and then the other 2 would go in.
And I had some years, there was plenty of years where it was like that. But yeah, I have some that I can just like, that's what I remember. It's like 3 weeks to go until Kennywood Day. It's like, who's Nick going to ride with?
Got to figure it out.
But no, I mean, I loved it just like, I think most people do that grew up around here. I was, we just went once a year. We were kind of like, casual lovers, I guess you could say, because we did the once a year. I can always remember like, no matter how long the line like might seem, you could always get on the Jackrabbit in 10 minutes or less.
Oh, yeah.
Was the feeling.
How old are you?
I'm 30. I'll be 36 in a few days.
Okay. Oh yeah, it's 24th. Happy birthday. Now for you to, grow up, it's interesting how you were saying like, you're a casual Kennywood goer, like, once a year for a picnic, but I don't know. We were kind of like opposite. My mother would just like, school would sell like the discounted tickets, and I have a brother that's 6 years older than me, and she would just buy like, handful of tickets and like just have them in case we wanted to like go again. And I remember us just like going random times, but I feel like we spent a lot there because like I had cousins that lived up in Somerset. So like they lived on like, 60 acres. So they didn't have like the same experience we did. So anytime they'd come down, it was like, my mom would like want to take us all there just so that they can get the
big city.
Yeah. Get that experience of up there. The closest thing we would go to is like Seabase. You know what that is?
No.
Seabase is like Chuck E. Cheese, except a little bit better. But yeah, it was interesting. As a kid, like what kind of stuff were you into? Like what were you playing sports and everything?
Yeah, I played sports a fair bit. I had my nerdy moments, super into X-Men.
Oh yeah, really? Comics?
Yeah, I've gotten back into it a little bit in my older years, but
there's so many people getting in it. There's so much good stuff now that it's like, you could dive right back into it.
There's if they have a really good app, the Marvel like app for comics. It's not even, I think it's like $50 or $60 for the year, and it's just like there's a bazillion comics on there. And so then you're not like,
I never heard of that.
Stacking up.
I know, because if you collect it, just like
rooms of comic books. I still have like from like I have the comics from.
Were you like a pretty active collector back then?
As a kid? I mean, I just like had the subscription, so yeah, you'd get X-Men would come in the mail. But yeah, I was really into sports. Baseball, football, wrestling, pro wrestling,
as everyone was,
especially that age. That was like the coming of age. Was in like you grew up. Learning how to
Attitude Era,
the Rock,
Attitude Era.
Undertaker. Yeah, that's it.
You can't really beat that. It's like even if do you ever watch it now?
A little bit, yeah.
I have not kept up with it at all. How is it?
I've kind of not. I've declined in the last year or two. But there was definitely some good runs. I probably got back into it probably close to about 10 years ago, and probably my high school. I have some high school buddies who were really into it, and so when I moved back up here, it kind of like got back into it, and it had some stretches where it was really good, but it had some stretches where it's really bad.
Yeah, I think that Raw's coming in like a couple weeks.
Yeah, they usually come right before WrestleMania, which is the beginning of April.
Oh yeah, it is. So, I bought WrestleMania one time at my house on Comcast. Parents were pissed. It was like $70.
Yeah,
I didn't even realize it. I just was like, yeah, I'll click it, and I remember watching it, but big money. So as a kid, like what are your dreams of what you want to do as an adult? Because I don't assume that this is,
Yeah. I crystallized actually pretty fast. A lot of people are like, I don't know what I want to do. But I, from probably like 10 or so years old, I got starstruck by Sports Center in the 90s.
Oh yeah.
You know, and Dan Patrick and Keith Olbermann when they were at their peak, or Stuart Scott,
Yeah.
you know, and Linda Cohn, Rich Eisen, they were like, you know, they were stars. And the sports player, the athletes were stars too, you know, but that was when they just showed game highlights basically, and they had all the great catchphrases. So I'd like watch on repeat for hours, you know, the same. So I wanted to be a Sports Center anchor, you know, and so I took that, and, you know, along with playing sports in high school, you know, did like our, you know, Raider Vision TV program, and I did play-by-play for the high school basketball games.
Oh, really?
In high school. And then I went to Penn State where, you know, there was abundant opportunity to do stuff like that. And I mostly pissed it all away because I was too focused on partying and didn't really have the light. I did some stuff, but like the light bulb didn't go on until it was almost too late that I could have like really positioned myself to be, because I thought I wanted to be like, you know, an Al Michaels type. Or
do they have
you know,
like a pretty good broadcasting broadcasting courses?
Yeah,
up there?
yeah. I mean, their communication stuff now is, I mean, phenomenal. It was good when I was there.
Yeah.
And I definitely got, you know, did like the TV, focused on like the TV path mostly, and got really good experience there. But it's like from a few years after I graduated, it was already like it had leveled up to where they were doing like, you know, when unfortunately the scandal erupted there. I mean, they had like the students doing like live broadcasting, like from outside Beaver Stadium. And
yeah.
stuff
So like
that.
there was like real opportunities to report on stuff.
And there's so many people that, you know, continue to come out or have come out that have, you know, from Penn State. So it was a great program, and I definitely, you know, got it. But it's like, if my dream of being, you know, like doing that really intense stuff, I probably I should have focused more on the class and the extracurriculars and less on the
hindsight's
scene,
2020.
Hindsight is 2020.
That's
absolutely.
what it is. I mean, like I went to college right out of high school at Slippery Rock, failed out of there, and then I just wasn't ready to go to school do that. And then I worked, and I was like, oh, I'm working, busting my ass for $10 an hour, and like I was like, I got to go back to school. Went back to school, graduated with like a 3.7. It's like it got to be like, you know, no matter what anyone tells you, no matter what anyone tries to do to prepare you for this, like you're never gonna, you know, you can't just like force someone to want to do it.
Yeah.
It got to come. You got to want to do it.
And there's so many options out there. And I think I am not somebody who should have gone into the trades or anything like that, because I'm not handy at all. But
I'm not handy.
There's so many other opportunities. It doesn't just have to be college, or like just to, you know, pick what you want to do and study. Like,
well, if you think about it, it's like,
it's a lot.
I'm 32. You said you were a little bit older. So it's like our generation is not, we didn't have like, at least I didn't have that experience in high school where there was like that opportunity just like pushed at us. Like I would see like PTI come in, Pittsburgh Technical College, and they would come in and do a, you know, little presentation. But other than that, it's like, I don't remember people like maybe vocational schools came in once, but like it was never just like a reoccurring option. It was just like they tell you about it once and then, you know, kind of push it away. Yeah. And it's weird to think about that now, because like I talked to so many people who were like, oh yeah, I did this. I did vocational in high school. I did like, you know, a work study in high school. And I'm like, I didn't even know that stuff was available. I just didn't really care. You know, I think about that stuff now, and it's just like, I just had I wasn't analyzing anything as a child.
Right.
But so you go through college, and like, what's after college look like? Like, where are you working after there?
Yeah. So, you know, like I said, I thought I wanted to do sports. But yeah, as it got to it, and I hadn't built up, you know, much of a track record in that, but I had done, you know, like TV classes and, you know, news. And I had an instructor who had been a news director for some, local TV stations, primarily out West, and said, well, you should, you know, go the news track, because frankly, every, you know, red-blooded man in your field wants to do sports, so you actually like set yourself apart. You know, it's kind of counterintuitive. Thank you. To think, but as a man, going local news, you actually be like more. What's the term I'm trying to
like a minority in that field,
a little bit of a minority in a sense.
Because
I like hesitate to ever call myself a minority.
Oh no, I get it.
But you know, you stand out because you're different. Because like, you know, in that sense, it wasn't so. Whereas sports is like, yeah, I mean, it was probably at that time we were looking to hire more women or more minorities because it was so many just white guys that were doing sports. So
it's so interesting to hear
news.
that, because like Sally, I was talking to Sally about her. She's obviously
Yeah.
getting into sports too, but it was like her, she wanted to get into sports, but it was just like all male driven.
Right.
So like she just like wasn't really welcome. But it's an interesting way to think about it, because
When I came
on the
along,
news
yeah.
end, it's usually females as the broadcasters. Like, yeah, there's male broadcasters, but I would say it's more like a female driven career to be on TV as a broadcaster. I guess not. I don't know. I guess it's
but it's probably more balanced, but it was at that time, like, it was the trend was probably more to diversify the
Yeah.
sports side. So that maybe worked against me. And so I focused on news, and I'm really glad I did, because it opened my eyes up to like, there's so much more in the world than sports.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
there's so much that's important and matters. And, even just covering, city council meetings and stuff like that got you an awareness and, politics and all the inner workings of life that are probably useful to know about, important to know about as an adult. So,
yeah, absolutely.
so I did that. Like I said, I wanted to get away from what I had known. So I was looking for a job out of state. I applied for jobs all over the country. It happened that the one that gave me an opportunity to be on air as a reporter, not just like a photographer, cameraman.
Oh,
was,
really?
In Washington State. So I moved
Wow.
to Yakima, Washington, which is
Yakima.
like the bike brand.
Oh, wow.
Which is not actually in Yakima, but anyways. So it's about 2.5 hours from Seattle and 3.5 from Portland, like right smack in the middle of Washington State.
Is it by Rainier?
It's a couple hours east of Rainier.
Okay.
But it's on the Cascade Mountains, kind of block off the east side of the state from the west side. So
Yeah.
the west is what we think of as Seattle, and the rainy and
Okay.
muggy, and then Yakima's like desert, 300 days of sunshine. It's
Really?
It's like one of its nicknames is the fruit basket of America, because they make you get all kinds of apples, cherries, hops, tons of hops for beer, asparagus,
Wow.
all these different wine. It's probably behind like Napa, the Washington / Oregon is the most like popular area for
That's pretty
wine in the
wild.
country. So it was really interesting.
Was it a
really
big place where you at?
no. This is in terms of like the TV markets. It was probably like 130, and it was like split 2 towns. That it had like so I was in the smaller of the 2 towns.
I feel like I would love that, just because
was
like
cool.
you wouldn't have to be like I talked to Josh Getzoff, and he had a similar trajectory. Like he went out and he did, smaller type of broadcasting, and he was like, it was such a benefit because, I got to go and have my experience in a smaller world. And he was like, yeah, because it's smaller, you'll hear about it, but it's not going to be as detrimental as if you're in like an Atlanta, broadcasting and make mistakes like that. So it's cool to think about that.
Right. Yeah, no, it was definitely like, that's how it works, son, in that, you earn your stripes in those small places. And there was a ton of opportunity because it was, you didn't have people to hold your hand. It was, you went out, trained maybe once or twice, and then it's like, just go out and do it. And, go out and figure out it's kind of an impossible task. And it's like, move to this completely new area,
Yeah.
figure out what's going on and who the people are, and like come up with creative things to talk about in a sleepy town. So, and I worked the weekends for most of my time there. So it's like trying to find news on a
Something
Sunday afternoon.
interesting. Yeah.
It's like, oh man, it was really hard at times.
How long were you there?
Just short of 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then that's whenever you came back this way?
Yeah. So you kind of signed a 2-year contract. So once I hit kind of like the 18-month point, I started looking. My wife, she's from here. We dated long distance for most of that time, got married when about a year and a half into that. And she moved out west with me, but we kind of like, didn't want to put roots down there, obviously. So
Yeah.
I was like looking for and trying to get, I wanted to go to Arizona for some reason, but I can't speak Spanish, so I would have never worked.
Yeah.
But so we ended up, going back east and I got a job in Savannah, Georgia.
Yeah.
And so we went from the Pacific Northwest to the deep South,
Yeah.
Which was a really cool experience and interesting. We drove, sold one of our cars and most of our stuff, and just drove,
Wow.
Monday through Friday straight to get there.
That's definitely a unique experience.
It was
in
really
your life.
cool. It's really cool. I wish I had taken more time to, stop, but at the time it's like my new boss, like, I need you here ASAP. And you're not, again, in hindsight, and you're not thinking it's, 24, you may never do this again.
Yeah.
Like,
You're thinking like, this dude needs me here, I'm going to lose it.
Right. Like,
I remember quitting a job one time and giving them 2 weeks. And I remember not even giving myself a week of a break between 2 jobs. My last day was on Friday at one job and I started up on Monday. And then my buddy did this like a few months later and he was like, I took 2 weeks off, and I was like, oh, why did I made the biggest mistake of my life. And I was so mad, but I was thinking about that. So you were down in Savannah for how long?
About 2 years again.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So it was definitely, it was a little different experience, but again, like a lot of fascinating stuff and interesting stuff. But ultimately during that time, realized that TV news was just not what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
The station was a little bit dysfunctional, to say the least, when I got there. So I realized pretty quickly that I didn't, want to be there for a long time. And, I looked at, trying to like get a job up here in Pittsburgh or someplace else in news.
In news.
Yeah. And I just like didn't, I even was talking with like a coach, for the business. It was kind of like, you just need like one more big story to like, make your resume really, pop, and you can go anywhere you want. And I just like didn't have the want to like really find that story and put it together. We had a son, was down while we were down there. And so it was just like, wanted to come home, wanted to try do something else. Our family, both my wife and I's families were here. So moved back north to Pittsburgh, got a job in ostensibly PR, but it was a little bit of sales, a little bit of marketing, a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
Type of role. But yeah, it got me here. So,
and that's where that's where Kennywood starts.
That's where Kennywood came in. Not immediately.
Yeah, but
but yeah, I got that job that was kind of like a bit of a stepping stone, like just to get out of one business and into
and build your foundation back up here.
Right. And be local. And then I did that for a couple years. And then, I'd been searching for jobs. I spent most of 2014 searching for jobs. I think I interviewed for like 7 or 8 and was a finalist like 2 or 3 different times and just kept on not getting it. And then, the Kennywood job opened up and I was like, well, I mean, I gotta apply for this.
Gotta throw my name in.
And it just, I got called for an interview. I put it all in an interview. It probably the best interview of my life the first time around. And, it worked out. I was,
are you usually a good interviewer?
I don't know.
Some people are good and bad. Like I feel like
I've had good and bad. Yeah.
I feel like I do well in interviews. Like I don't really get too much like anxiety with interviews at all, but like other stupid things, I get crazy anxiety.
I guess I chose this career path inadvertently, that you get put in a lot of pressure situations and like under the gun and stuff like that. So in that sense, I'm used to it. And I like had at that point, I had interviewed for so many jobs, and I'd also been doing kind of like coffee networking.
That muscle memory was
that like it was a job, and I trained for it like it was a job, and even like writing the resume and stuff like that. Like I trained for that stuff and read books on like how to make that stuff look good, and
then it came out, and then
it worked out. Yeah, and so all those jobs I interviewed for, if I could, you set them out before me, that the Kennywood job was, of course, the one I would have picked. So
I mean, now to work for Kennywood Park, I mean, I feel like it's just got to be. I know there's stress to it, but I feel like it got to be a fun time.
It is. It is 99% of the time. There's it's fun and great stuff. My line is that it's always interesting. It isn't always fun, right?
Yeah,
because it's a job like any other, but it's always interesting. And so it was, even as like I said before, a casual Kennywood fan. It was like the second you put on that mantle and you have that role and that responsibility, it's like this extra big thing. So now it's like one of the most cherished places and things in my life.
Yeah.
So I feel like I've got this like responsibility, not just to give my best professionally, but like to carry the mantle for the park and the community in a way.
Absolutely. Because it means so much to like everyone here. I mean, it don't even matter if it was like, near and dear to your heart as a child. It's like, the reality of it. It's like everyone in the world probably seen that Kennywood Memories video throughout school, and just like, you know, it really does. It holds a special place in my heart. Obviously, the first time I met you, you know, I have a unique story about it. I mean, like, I hit you up. I wanted to propose to my wife there. I ended up asking her to be my girlfriend. It was like our second date at the top of the Phantom. That worked out, obviously. And then I was like, how am I going to propose? Because, like, I like doing, you know, stupid stuff. Not stupid, but I like doing nice, meaningful things. A little bit of flair, baby. You got to. I planned on only doing it once, so I might as well do it.
There you go.
But yeah, I hit you up and I was like, hey, I'd like to propose. And you were very, very cool about it, very accommodating. And then, you know, that was like probably one of the coolest days of my life.
That was really neat. I was thinking about it this morning, like reflecting on it myself. And yeah, you pulled out all the stops. It was really cool. I'm glad we did it, like, you know, in my first year, kind of when I didn't have as much baggage to deal with, because I was like, yeah, this is great. Like, let's do it, man. And, you know, it went really well.
For you to be someone who was like involved in the PR, like for someone to hit you up on that, that's obviously a good thing, I would suppose. Like, it's going to be good PR for you guys as well.
Yeah. We get a fair amount of requests like that. And I was actually going to be thinking, like, that first year too, we did another similar proposal, and it was one we had fun with too, where it was like, and I don't remember if one of our people came up with this or it was their idea, but like, you know, we pretended like the girlfriend, fiance was getting, you know, asked to do a survey by the staff, and, you know, her boyfriend got in position behind her. So that was another neat one. But yeah, yours was especially cool because we get those requests a fair amount. And a lot of times it's like, you know, they'll be like, what should I do? You know, how should I propose? And say, well, I don't know, buddy. It's your girlfriend. Like, you know, and, you know, we got a lot going on. So like, we're not, you know, this isn't the wedding.
Yeah, I don't have any more RAM in my head to be able to like figure out that.
So when you came and it wasn't just a random request with no vision, but you're like, I know exactly what I want to do. I can get all these pumpkins and make a big display, you know, if you're not using that stage. And so that made it like that much more smoother. And then you're also like, oh my gosh, like this will, you know, people will love this on social media. Yeah. Might be able to get, you know, the news interested in it. So yeah, from that selfish standpoint, it was like, yeah, we can make hay with this.
Well, it was selfish for me too, because I was like, how could they say no? This is going to be a great media opportunity. And it's like, let's work together on it. But it was cool because like, I remember hitting up my buddy and I was like, hey, let's film a video for this. And he was like, what do you mean? We're just going to go to Kennywood right now? And I was like, yeah, we're like going there right now. And then we got to drive through, like I'm driving my truck past the carousel. And he was like, I can't believe that this is happening. And I was like, me either. Like, it was wild. But yeah, that was awesome. I'm happy that, you know, obviously the relationship still worked out. So thank God. Yeah. But it's the most important day of my life shared at Kennywood. And I'm sure that, you know, a lot of the rest of the Pittsburgh world has a day that sticks with them as well. You know, taking your girlfriend there, I mean, it's wild. It's just like that's your life. You know, it's just a consistent time in life for a lot of people, because whether you go once a year or 15 times a year, it's just like every year, like we're going to go to Kennywood, and it holds that same place in your heart. Now, for you to, you know, kind of come in and, you know, take that position on, it's like what is, do you feel like overwhelmed with what you're doing? You know, I feel like that, like, what was the state of Kennywood back then? Because I feel like you guys are doing a lot more social media and stuff now and everything. And I feel like back then it wasn't as like, you know, wasn't as crazy.
Yeah. You know what? I think when I came in, it was kind of a mindset of, you know, we know social media is a thing. We know it's important. You know, there's a lot of awareness, you know, so we know we got to do it. Yeah. But we don't really know what or how. And it was just kind of like off in the corner. It was, you know, it was there. We're devoting something to it because we know we're supposed to, but exactly what or how, we don't quite know. And I just saw, like, you know, and I grew up like one of my most vivid memories of college in a way is like, you know, my first couple weeks and talking with somebody was like, you know, there's this new website. It's called the Facebook. And, you know, like I actually did the numbers, and I think I was, you know, with when Penn State got it compared to other schools, like I think I was among the first 1 million people to join Facebook, which when you think about how many members they have is a fun
my brother
fact.
went to Penn State too. And I remember him having it getting it, and
We
I
were
remember
pretty
being
early,
like, "What the
yeah.
hell is this?" Because we were on MySpace, like,
Okay.
MySpace was before that, and
Yeah.
then you see something new, and you're like, "What is this even?" And then it turns into being the anchor of everything.
Yeah, so that was just like, and I was I guess very online even before that with like American Online and Instant Messenger and stuff. Like
Leaving away messages.
my wife and I's relationship kind of blossomed. We worked together. That's how we met, but it kind of blossomed with like messaging on AIM. So like,
What a weird thing to think about, that like before people all had cell phones to text, it's like you come home. Because
sit on the computer and like, is anybody on? I hope somebody's on. I can chat with.
You hear
Like,
the door open and then the door close, and you're just like, oh, who popped on? And you see all these funny names. And it's weird because like I feel like I never really like thought about that, because my brother went through his high school career. Obviously, I was able to text people, and like, it was easy to like, keep in touch and make stuff happen. But if you didn't have a phone, you were just hoping someone got on AIM.
Yep.
And it was like two friends, even on a Friday, you guys were both hanging out on AIM, just talking to people.
Yep.
What a weird time in life.
Yeah, it was like if you didn't like hook up with I remember there was like, I wouldn't go home from school on Fridays because if you like separated from your friends, you might not
you
ever
didn't know where
reconnect
anyone
with
was.
them. Like, yeah, you're calling houses or like roaming the streets hoping you run into a pack of teenagers.
And it's such a
Not
crazy idea for like as a business to have to incorporate. You have to incorporate social media into your business, or you're going to get snuffed out.
Yeah.
I mean, 100%.
Yeah,
so it's a beast.
They were doing a little bit, but it was just like, as one of my mentors told me when I started the job, like, you're selling ice cream.
Yeah.
So like the pictures on Instagram and, the stream of consciousness stuff and other places. Cause and I was just doing it like a fan, like, look, this is fascinating. I started in February and it's like, look, they're building, they're putting the Pittsburgh plunge back together, or, working on the cars for a coaster. And, so just to show stuff like that. And,
as a fan, I think that is the most interesting.
Like yeah.
It's
Like you said, when you drove your truck in when the park was closed, like seeing the park in that state is like, it's always an experience, and being with people, even now, like, being alongside them. And I've done it, hundreds of times at this point, but to be with somebody, like seeing it for the first time like that is always a cool experience, because they are like, whoa. Like,
yeah.
It's so quiet.
Because you're usually like, you go in there and there's a million people and like, lights are going, but to see it all like shut down, it's almost like my image in my head, like almost thought of it as being eerie, but it's like, it wasn't. It was more just like, it was like perplexing, because you're like, everything's supposed to be ripping around right now, and to see like everything just stopped is cool. I remember just sitting on that stage, just like looking around, and I remember like turning around behind and looking like at the little pond over the Sky Coaster, or under the Sky Coaster, and just thinking like, this is pretty crazy to look at. And I'm curious as far as like some of the details. How big is Kennywood? Like
the park itself is about 40 acres.
40.
Yeah.
I was curious on what it was. I was trying to figure it out online, but now for you to, come in there and like, try to, we were talking about social media and like the type of things that you would be able to like kind of start it out with. But now Kennywood, this year's what, 125 years or celebrate, or next year?
So yeah, this is technically season and year 124. And next year will be 125.
1898.
1898 it was founded. The earliest like bit of information we have is an article from December of 1898 that was just, announcing that this park was going to open next summer.
Now, was that Kenny's Grove?
That's what it was at the time. It was this picnic grove, and, kind of a clearing. You're overlooking the mall, and people would go there for picnics or dances or just like all kinds of, it was just a hangout spot back then, even before the park. But then, they rented the land and, pulled the strings to get a trolley line through there.
Oh, wow.
It was the trolley. It was the trolley company that founded it. It was kind of like their workaround to get people to use the trolley when they weren't, going to work at the mills.
Oh, wow.
Which is funny because the trolleys are gone. The trolley's gone. The mills are mostly gone, but Kennywood remains.
I know.
But they wanted like a tent pole from the higher ups in terms of like all the reinvestment stuff we're doing this year. They wanted a tent pole and like kind of a marketing pitch line, and they're like, it's 125 seasons. And I'm like, well, actually guys, it's next year. And I have to be like real, again, like
clarify
that protecting and making sure like we're not, doing anything loopy. I said, no, because they'd celebrated 100 years in 1998 and we did 120 in 2018. So you got to like keep the math straight. So
Yeah. People
it's
will
gotta be
definitely
next
call
year,
it out.
But we can do this multi-season celebration because why not? There's no reason to just do something for 1 year. So we get
Absolutely, especially a big milestone like
right.
that.
You put the work into the logo and all that fun stuff. So why just use it for 1 year? So we'll carry it for maybe whether it's 2 years or I could see it being even a few years.
I feel like
longer.
it's fair to do right now because it's like with all the renovations and with all like the facelift that you guys are doing. I mean, you brought the kangaroo back.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I'm definitely going to be asking about the kangaroo. So,
Yeah.
but before we get to that, I'm more curious about this history. So, when did the rides start coming into play?
So, I mean, the first season they had a ride, they had a merry-go-round just to start, but that was pretty much it. You did have like rowboats on the lagoon.
Yeah.
So that was something that when you're doing that out the paddle boats now, but you're doing one of the things that was there first. But a lot of the other stuff, there might have been there was a lot of, gardens and just walking through athletic events and competitions. So the parking lot had like a baseball field and a track, and they would do races and play sports and things like that.
Wow.
So that was in the early years a big part of it, and that faded away. The first coaster opened in 1901, which is also when the old mill opened.
Oh yeah, 1901.
1901. So the old mill is the oldest ride, and it's had about 15 different names in that time. But
Was that the original name, the old mill?
Ye Old Mill. Yes.
Ye Old Mill. Wow. And was it always horror themed? Would you consider it horror themed?
Not now. I mean, I guess it's it's so campy, but I don't think it's ever been scary.
No, I don't think it's scary, but it means skeletons and it's spooky.
Yeah, it's the haunted Old West. Is the theme. It's been
haunted. That's it. Yeah, haunted.
Aside from the Garfield fever dream for a decade and a half, it's been that. it's been that that sort of theme for most of your life and mine.
And it's always been in the same place?
It's always been in the same place. It burned down in the 20s. They had a fire and it burned down. But they rebuilt it pretty close to the original track and path. But the scenes inside have changed a lot. It was, at one point it was like the 8 wonders of the world, or it was the Panama Canal. They were capitalizing on current events as they were building the Panama Canal, and that was the theme of the ride. There used to be, and there's definitely people around who can tell you about experiencing it, because there used to be a few stretches of the ride that were uncovered, so you'd kind of go outdoors.
Oh wow.
Go through, and even in the earliest days there was a couple actual drops and splashdowns, very mild.
Wow.
Not log jammer by any means, but there were a few of those, and I think sometimes that was that's a spot where your boats get jammed up and stuff like that, so they got rid of those over time.
Probably my favorite ride beside for what was it called, the Chariot?
The Chariot. I don't know about that.
That was where is it at? Right next to the potato patch. It's I believe right where the cat rack is. Right to the left of there used to be a ride called the Chariot.
Oh, like a show.
No, it was a ride. It almost was like a booth.
It was like a dark ride.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was called Le Cachot.
Oh, Le Cachot?
Which is French for the dungeon.
Oh, really?
But you sat in these you sat in these cars, and you went around, it's called a pretzel dark ride because it's kind of in the shape of like a figure 8 or a pretzel. If you looked at the schematics of it, it was real. We just posted, they've been doing as part of this anniversary, like a weekly throwback Thursday on Facebook. And I think last week was the 70s, and 70s had a log jammer come in and a bunch of other stuff, but that ride is what got the most talk about. I mean, coasters, everybody always seizes on coasters, but dark rides are another thing that people have a lot of passion about. So that was one that is frequently on the miss this ride, and
that's almost a fever dream for me.
It was really cool. It was a unique ride, and those rides are fun.
Now, do you know offhand when that came out? Because I remember
probably the late 90s or early 2000s. I don't know exactly.
Yeah, it had to be somewhere around there, because I vividly remember going on that, but I don't remember a lot of the details. But I do. I always loved that. I always loved the Gold Rush.
Mm-hmm. Another dark ride.
Yeah, another dark ride. I like the spooky themed rides where you're just kind of going around. But I love all the rest of them. What was your favorite ride as a kid?
I would say the Jackrabbit.
Yeah,
Jackrabbit and the Phantom.
Probably is every child.
Pretty straightforward.
You think you're never going to do anything that crazy again,
right? Right. But yeah, and then Always the kangaroo for sure. I mean, that's what it was such a.
I got to ask you. That was honestly your favorite ride, the kangaroo?
It was one of my favorites. I think it's hard to separate a little bit because as an adult and as a dad, it has absolutely been one of my favorites because it was like even before my kids could do the jackrabbit or when they were still real hesitant for it.
I guess that's fair.
The kangaroo, you get out of Kittyland, and it was something where you could ride, you sit all right next to each other in the bench. It's got that like airtime that's exhilarating, but it's not too crazy. So
that's fair. Now for you to bring it up like that is fair. But for me as an adult, I obviously rode that as a kid. And whenever I saw that there was another ride coming back, and I can't bash the kangaroo, but it wasn't my first choice of what it would be. Mm-hmm. And I was curious on why it would be because, I just didn't know. I was curious on like how the process of picking rides to come back and like how rides are like decided upon to go away. Yeah. Like what is a little bit of that process and who is involved with it?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the process ultimately is popularity, the maintenance and upkeep needs of the attraction, and kind of just like what the vision is for the park. And so, it kind of depends. I mean, Kennywood is pretty packed we have 40 acres and we've pretty much used that all up.
Yeah.
And so it is a lot of times where you have to, do addition and subtraction when you're making changes.
And what space you could utilize.
Yeah, exactly. So
did you just keep the kangaroo somewhere on the property?
Yeah, it went into storage. I mean, and that was one, and I think that was also something that was different in a lot of ways from what this process would normally be because these decisions were being made kind of under the shadow of the pandemic.
Yeah.
Because this happened late 2020 and the company as a whole had been, going through some changes. We had, made some significant changes in our ownership and leadership, not just at the local park level, but even like on a global scale with our parent company and company that owns us. And those got, a lot of thrown sideways and just thrown off by COVID, which, those changes were really happening. Like, the pieces moving, on the big scale in 2019, and then couldn't really. Then the pandemic came and everything kind of had to shift. But,
yeah.
With those specifics, it was coming off of an environment where you had a lot of you had some attractions that needed a lot from a maintenance standpoint to be where everybody wanted them to be. For the next season, and kind of had to make some hard decisions about like, is this, are these rides, should they come back? Should we put the money in to get them to where they need to be for the season? And it is like, there's a reason that most parks don't have the number of old and rare rides that Kennywood has because
it's probably a beast to do an upkeep
decision that, it's not worth it anymore. We'd be better off putting something new in that, for as much as, it's fascinating. You look, as much as Kennywood people, Pittsburgh people are, keep my old rides, keep them going, bring my old rides back.
Yeah.
Other parks, you look at, that ride's old and boring. Nobody wants that anymore. Like get rid of that and bring us, we want something new.
Yeah.
And, so it is like this, kind of bizarro world compared to most of our competition.
Yeah, pulling between nostalgia and like the feeling of wanting some new exhilarating stuff.
I mean, nostalgia is powerful in this market. I mean,
very
Pittsburgh
powerful.
Is and it's super powered in Pittsburgh. It's powerful everywhere, but no, I don't know if it's got like
that's Pittsburgh's superpower, nostalgia.
Yeah, right. So, and I think that was something that even before it went out, I was like, because it was something, like I said, from a personal standpoint. And the kangaroo was like the last ride of its kind that was anywhere. So that's a big part of Kennywood's calling card.
That was like
rides like that. So that's, they looked at like, as we had a better year in 2021, had like the money and stuff like that to add a new attraction. And there were plans, even before the pandemic, there were plans we thought we were going to be getting a new ride in 2021 and it was going to replace an old ride. But then that got all thrown upside down. But then as last year went better, it was okay. We were able to add, we can have a new ride for 2022. And, they looked at it and they crunched the numbers and they're making a lot more decisions based off of surveying people, off of data and like a much more thoughtful process. And frankly, some of what was there previously.
Yeah.
Which is a really good thing.
Yeah, more calculated.
We're seeing the positives of that and the reaction we see from the public and, our past sale numbers and stuff like all that business stuff. But, ultimately it was, we could do this new ride and it, costs about this much and this is the benefits to it. Or, we could, reinvest and kind of modernize this ride to get it, operationally to where we want it to be.
Yeah.
Because it was something that was built opened in 1962 with 1962 technology and all that stuff.
That's when the Kangaroo was from, 1962.
That's when it opened. So,
Jeez.
And this is the cost of that, and this is the potential benefit, and they weighed it. And I certainly, like I said, I was starting the Bring the Kangaroo Back case before we actually announced that it was going away. Just in private circles.
When did it go away?
When we made the announcement, like in November of 20.
That it was going away.
That it was going to go away. So after the 2020 season, and it was something that wasn't necessarily on the radar, because in those situations, if you're getting rid of something, you at least want to do like the goodbye tour.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's part of that nostalgia. And it lets people have a chance to say goodbye. And that was one of the the challenges of the pandemic was some of these things like you didn't necessarily know that was even going to be on the radar. But we were, they looked at it and it made the most sense to bring the ride back. And, I think the response that we've seen from the public is already shown that was a good choice. So I'm really excited about that.
It's a cool way to think about it being, it's a big kid ride that the little kids could ride, that's cool to think about it. Cause I do remember being very young and like being able to get on that and it being something like crazy. Cause you're like, a little kid, you're flying off that and you're dropping. So I get that.
It's a glue ride, and that's what I think about more, now working there than I would have previously. Like your roller coasters and stuff like that, or your big headlines here for Kennywood, your potato patch draws people in.
Yeah.
Even some people are really into dark rides. Like we were saying earlier, like those can draw people in, but then like you need more than the headliners to keep people there.
Oh yeah.
Keep the experience strong. And so like the Kangaroo is a great glue ride. You're not necessarily coming for that, but it's a
cherry on top after you ride the fun
experience. And, so those things are really important. So I'm glad in that sense that we can bring it back because you always need, you want people to stay as long as possible. And that's part of that mission.
Yeah. I think it's cool that Kennywood has like some of the historical rides still. Like I saw that the Turtles were from 1927. Mm-hmm. Like I feel like that's crazy. I saw that they were made in Beaver.
Yeah. And
I was like, that's pretty wild that is, it's just a cool story because I remember that being like, the Turtles was something that whether I was, 6 or like, 16, Jesus, a bird just flew into the window. That was? Jeez, scared me.
Heard the bird.
But yeah, the Turtle I would always ride with my mom, and it's just like a glue ride, like you said. It's like obviously for me as a 16-year-old, it isn't the most exhilarating, but it's like something that I'll always ride. Same thing with the carousel. Yep. It's like every year I go there, I'm gonna ride it.
And those are like people, that's my our family's first ride.
Yeah.
That's our family's last ride.
Yeah.
I don't know how much they do this anymore in the era of cell phones, but like we're going to meet at 3:00 at the merry-go-round.
100%.
You can re-up on cash or whatever you need,
100%.
And that's kind of, and that was like a rite of passage thing too, is like that first time that you get like, that's where you get that bit of independence is like, I'm going to go off with my friends for a few hours and we'll meet up later. And,
oh yeah, that's a good point too.
That's a big, and that's it. Kennywood is huge for those rites of passage. And that's the other thing, because it's not just our rites of passage, but it's like your parents did this too.
Yeah.
And your that's it. Like my turtle experience is like, we'd go and my grandmother would come with us a lot of years and she'd ride the merry-go-round and she'd ride the train and she'd ride the turtle, and she was 80 years old. And you just get her like, she would do those things. So the more we can keep that together and look at like, your grandparents, your great grandparents may have ridden this ride. There's always, I think, an element of that, even as things evolve and change. And, it's not to say that, there might come a point where some of those rides like just have to go.
Yeah, for sure.
But, we try to keep that going and make real thoughtful and intentional decisions, as we continue to go forward to preserve as much as we can.
I saw that the music making contraption used in the carousel I believe the Wurlitzer military band organ.
Yes.
Now that thing is, it said that it was like one of the only ones left.
Yeah, I mean they're pretty rare. I mean, and people that are into this will know like Wurlitzer is an esteemed name for a band organ, and that sort of thing. And that thing it's from 1916, so it's older than the merry-go-round, which also came in 1927.
My goodness.
And it's I mean they're around, but they're by and large showpieces, right? Like if you had one of those, you're not putting it out in the elements and using it 200 days a year like we are at Kennywood. I mean, it's a real workhorse. So, I know it's a little hard actually to find people that like can work on something like that. But literally somebody comes in, once a year or sometimes more than once a year to like tune it and work on it and get it up to speed.
That was literally my next question is like, how do you even find, like, is the person who does this like, 95 with like old, like a leather tool pouch?
Close. Yeah, I know. I think the guy now is like, he has to come in from Central PA. There was a few years where
Central PA,
they were bringing him, the guy that they brought in, he was from Richmond, would come up for
my
3
goodness
days because it's like, and I was thinking about that because we have like people who have become, and you have locals from Pittsburgh who are like, they're band organ enthusiasts now because of the carousel at Kennywood. And so I was thinking about that. I'm like, we should probably get one of these guys like studying at the knee of this dude next time he comes into town. So we have like
protege,
but we have, I mean, our maintenance mechanic staff, like they can do some level. So you hear like if you have the radio, the walkie talkie, and like I, as the PR person, for whatever reason, I get to be on the radio station with the operations folks. So I can hear like, have the call sign come in and you hear like, okay, the organ has gone down for maintenance. So like, you get at that time, sometimes it doesn't happen too often, but like that the merry-go-round is going and there's no
music
playing. But and that's one of the things, like as long as we can possibly keep that going so that, some parks they're using CDs or digital, organ music to on their carousel.
It definitely adds a different vibe.
Yeah, absolutely. So
for you to, obviously you said you got kids now and I'm sure that you frequent the park. Maybe you don't because you work there every day. But for you to, kind of, develop your own. Obviously, you're developing your own way of doing things there. As far as like, you got to make this business part of everyone's. How do I want to say it? You got to make people involved in this to a certain extent. And that's an interesting way to think about things for a business because like you were saying, it's ultimately not just like, from a business point of view, but you really want to have, the customers have their input on it because you don't want to just make these decisions out of nowhere. Now, for you to go to the customers and hear things like that, what happens whenever you have negative? You know what I mean? Because I know Kennywood has had negative. I know you guys almost got burnt down whenever the ketchup mishap happened. Yeah. That was crazy. Yeah. I feel like I have to bring it up.
Yeah,
is that all right?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't want to be like let's not talk about that.
No, it's been long enough now that
2019.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing this, and I was like, I remember seeing Kennywood in the headlines, and I was like, what is going on? And it boiled down to ketchup. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, and that's the one thing that I have to say I never thought I would do as much of in this job is like, putting out fires. So
I'm pulling this back a little bit.
Okay. It is putting out fires, but for better or for worse, it's been a part of that. And that was probably, one of the least expected and yet like was like a car crash in slow motion that like, kind of like the second I found out that was happening, like,
how do you find out that happens?
So, I mean, I guess I just kind of found it out indirectly in talking with like the food people before that season that, at that point it was a decision that was made, kind of by the corporate office at the time. Like I said, Kennywood is part, and I think most people know at this point, Kennywood's, not kind of just locally owned and operated, but is part of, 25 parks in the US. And so, like a lot of businesses, you're looking for procurement and national contracts and like most efficient and effective for things that you're buying a ton of.
Yeah.
Ketchup. And so, like for whatever reason in that off season, they were, going through negotiations and stuff like that. And it didn't work out with Heinz, and they tried to, taking negotiation tactics. Well, we're going to go to, to someone else. We're going to,
Yeah.
And and sometimes in the past, the corporate offices and the headquarters was located out in California, and so even though Kennywood was and is the biggest park of our chain in the U.S. And kind of the flagship park, they weren't necessarily thinking about that stuff because they didn't understand
how big
Pittsburgh
of a deal it is
and how big of a deal something like that is. So when they told me that, I'm like, oh no, this can't possibly be happening. Why would they do that? And we do most every year. We do like a crisis communications, crisis media training. You're just like practicing for any sort of situation that can come up. And how you would deal and handle that. And so
that's interesting to think about that.
Yeah. And I think that's something when you work in PR and, that field, it's pretty common.
Yeah. You probably, I feel like that as someone who doesn't, have any, that's an interesting thing to think about is like, that's a valid point and a valid thing that happens no matter what.
Yeah. Yeah. But just, whatever your office is, you have someone that's a safety officer and emergency plans and things like that. Even just like, where we go if there's a fire, and so they have, emergency action, emergency operations plans. If they do, and from my standpoint, how do we communicate about things, whether it's an issue or a full blown crisis? But anyway, so we talk about. We have that session and we're doing, serious things that we would, how we would respond to them and deal with them. And you kind of play out the scenarios. And then I put together a scenario that was, ketchup and,
you did this before it hit.
Yeah. And before we opened that year of
I'd love to hear that.
The radio stations get wind of it and they're,
how did that happen? How did people start to get wind of it?
I think it just, naturally
people
they just noticed. It. Yeah. Well, I think it had like the packets, right? And so you didn't have, and we drilled it out and, we talked about it before the season. And I felt like we talked about it for 45 minutes. And then I sat there and thought to myself, like, we just talked about this and how we would handle this and we don't have a good answer.
Yeah.
Because it's like, it's not that serious that it's like, but it is that serious. And how do you handle that? So, and lo and behold, that came to pass. What I wasn't counting on was that they also changed the cheese that they used at the potato patch that season.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Which became like its own mini controversy of its own. That we had to kind of deflect. And I said, and it was kind of the same thing. It's like, you're messing with one of the most popular things in the park.
That's a pillar. Like it's a pillar. People go there for that reason.
It shouldn't be important, but it matters. It matters to the experience.
It speaks about Pittsburgh.
They didn't think it tasted as good, and they didn't like it. So, but I was able to get them. We pivoted pretty quickly to we'll go back to the original, and that was over and done within a day. But the ketchup thing, I knew for whatever reason they were much more dug in on. But then somebody tweeted out that they were bringing their own Heinz ketchup packets, just some random person.
Oh my God.
Their own Heinz ketchup to the park because people do feel that strongly, as you know, from living here. And Heinz, they blew us up on social media is what happened. They retweeted the person to their all their followers that they were sending him a summer supply of ketchup packets. So then you see then all the local news stations start picking up on it and then it's getting, all amplified there. And then your drive time morning radio shows are picking up on it and your Pittsburgh dads and your Billy Gardell is throwing flames at us. Are you
sick about this as a media guy?
I'm sick to my stomach, having super anxiety because we're just getting crushed.
I know. And it was a few days and
it went on for a while
and I'm like, I can't so I remember the point that this was happening. I remember me and my wife saying Jesus, I feel bad for Nick kind of because this is crazy because for me, I wasn't going to be I'm never going to be a Kennywood again unless there's Heinz, but I know that there's some crazy people and social media.
We got so much vitriol. Yeah.
It's so scary because people that have these businesses, whether it be someone huge like Kennywood or whether it be a small mom and pop shop, it's social media is so detrimental to people's businesses and their livelihoods and everything. It's obviously you knew Kennywood was going to recover from it because if the world is all pushing against you, you're obviously going to have to go back to what it was to kind of mitigate that chaos.
Right. And so, and that was the thing. It was all this, all this negative attention. And then I think we had and I say from my standpoint, and when a brand kind of gets, you take some stomach shots like that.
Yeah.
It makes it, it opens you up to be more susceptible to the next negative hit. So next time something wasn't great was happening where, maybe the news has said, that's not really something. Instead, they're we've been talking about Kennywood. Let's keep on, let's keep going. And so we ended up getting more, negative pressures about I think, related to the park experience in some ways. So then we're getting kind of called to the carpet about, and it was like, some of this, like, this started in some ways because of the cheese and ketchup, like this, like a miniature, these issues. If you don't handle these issues, you open yourself up to these issues, it dwells into where it can actually have an impact on business. And I tried making that case to them. It's like, guys, you just like, you can't like, and because they're so what? It's ketchup. Who cares? I'm like,
it's the Achilles heel.
Our guests care. That's who cares. Like our customers care.
Yeah. Do you think the big people were surprised by how crazy it was?
They had no idea, no expectation.
I don't think anyone could have ever guessed that.
But I think like the Pittsburgh, like I felt like it was, like I could see it coming from a mile away. Like
and then as a Pittsburgher, you're like, even if you don't have like a big of a dog in a fight, you're like, it's so easy for people to be on social media and just like,
just dogpile.
Yeah, just dogpile. It's like even a retweet, and it's just like it keeps going. But yeah, obviously it's back to where it is.
Yeah, we got it. We got it straightened out. We were able to reposition, and and the one thing through it all, because I don't want to come across like bad or bitter, but the one thing that you have to appreciate is that people care. People care so much, and that passion, even if it like it dings you a little bit and it stings you in some situations, like every business and organization out there would kill
to have people that passionate
level of passion and care from their customer base. So
that's a really cool way to look at it too.
We were able to, thankfully we went back and kind of common sense prevailed in the end. So Heinz, has been back for several years now. And that's the ketchup that you're going to find at the park. I'm very happy to report. But yeah, it was quite an experience, and it was quite a stressful few weeks. I actually had to get out of town. I scheduled. I went to
people were picking it out my house.
Booked a trip to Virginia. Like the day my kids got out of school that June, we left town for a while. And while I was out of town is when it officially happened. And I let my boss at the time he could be the shining face that said, "Don't worry, we brought the ketchup back. It's all good." So he was the one on the news that night.
My wife was like, "Are you going to bring up the ketchup incident?" And I was like, yeah, I have to. I feel like I would have to talk about it because that was like a crazy big deal. But after obviously you fight through all the negative things that happen, you have all the great stuff that happens in Kennywood as well. The steel curtain.
Yeah.
I mean, epic.
So, yeah.
It really is epic.
Same year too, which, not to but that was a big part of my selling point. It's like, guys, like, we've got the Steelers area. It's Pittsburgh. We just went like all in on all Pittsburgh. And now you're going to like, you don't want to be opening the Steelers roller coaster and have like people, throwing shots at you at the same time about ketchup. It's like, felt like Allen Iverson. It's like, we're talking about ketchup, guys. Like, this is not the thing to dig in on. Like,
what did he say? We're talking about practice.
Yeah. It's not a game. It's practice.
I mean, whenever I know that got to be a beast in itself to like, orchestrate something like that. So before, the roller coaster opens, how far in advance is that set into motion?
So a long time, and it like, and it's cool now, and like, cause I can talk things about, more hindsight in some ways. So it was probably about the time that you and I met. Okay.
That long ago?
First time my boss shared with me, our general manager shared with me like a computer animation rendering of a potential the park's next potential roller coaster, which didn't end up being the steel curtain. But that just to give you like an example. And it kind of, the project that ended up becoming the steel curtain, because this was a ride, it was actually supposed to kind of more so go behind where the curtain is now, behind the log jammer. It was going to go down the ravine behind the park, the hillside down there towards the river. So kind of like the Phantom does, but on the other side of the park, because we own all that land. It's old Union Railroad property, and the park had purchased it. And the park owns a lot of land around Kennywood with like kind of, an eye towards the future without necessarily having a clear cut.
Yeah, if you need it there.
Right. I mean, in hopes of expansion. So it was a crazy ride, and that ended up being the project. And we were working towards it. Actually, that was, even presented at like a West Mifflin, council borough meeting at some point. This proposal, so that was like this, the idea was another coaster would go down into the ravine. But as they, we're going through a lot of this process, you can imagine all the red tape, as it turned out, it was like, this was like extra complicated, probably more than they anticipated, because it's West Mifflin and then it goes into Duquesne. Then there's water. So you've got the Army Corps of Engineers involved. You've got the West Mifflin Historical Society, because there's old buildings, and it was just like all this stuff. And it came to the realization, like, we're not going to be able to,
wow, I never
do
even
this in the
thought
time
of that even.
Yeah. I mean, it's
like,
definitely a years long process to put in a ride of that magnitude.
but I'm thinking of even like how you were saying by the water, you have like the Army Corps of Engineers and stuff like that to have all that even,
waterway. Yeah.
Yeah. That's crazy to think about.
And there was like a snail or something like that was on the property. So it was like, oh, what's the mitigation, or, is this an endangered species or stuff like that? So I don't even remember what, fish and wildlife wasn't, had to be involved. And so it became like, okay, like this is not like a project that we like, do the permitting for in, 2016 and then it opens in 2018 or 2019. This is like, we start working now and maybe we can have it in like 2027.
That's crazy.
And sometimes, so there, and that's probably, that's a bigger thing that we don't need to get into about like all the regulatory stuff, but any business has to go through a lot of
100%.
And that's, other people can talk more eloquently about that than I can. But anyways, so it came back like, okay, this like, project isn't really gonna work. And at the same time, the log jammer, as much as it's a mainstay, and again, like a ride that I love and has a real place of historical significance for the park's history, it has reached the end of its lifespan.
In what way are you saying?
As a attraction, as
do you guys have any sort of idea of the
as like a structural entity, let's say?
Oh, okay. So physically it does.
Like the Fernala Bridge, but not quite.
Jeez, it's crazy.
But I mean, because that ride, and that's the thing, like the wood coasters are actually easier because you go through and you replace
the wood
every year. I mean, they replace about 10% of the track of the structure every year. Thunderbolt this year is getting
400 feet, right?
900 feet
900
this year.
Jeez.
So that's a lot. Yeah. So they can do that every year. Effectively, it's not actually like this, but effectively every 10 years, you've got a new roller coaster. The steel ones, is a lot different. Obviously, we'll come to that someday with the Phantom. And that'll be like a really interesting conversation. But the jammer was there, and the trough of the log jammer is fiberglass. And I don't know if you know anything about this.
It starts,
but you can only patch fiberglass so many times.
Yeah.
And that's like one of the things people. Oh, the water in the log jammer is so dirty and disgusting. No, the water was perfectly clear, filtered. It was like your swimming pool. But the trough had been patched so many times that it looked like crap.
Yeah. That makes sense. Do you guys have numbers on the amount of people that like ride each ride?
They used to, in the days of tickets and stuff like that, they used to keep much closer track of that. They don't as much anymore because you just get in and you can ride as much as you want. I think they're getting back to that more. I mean, that's actually been part of like, big improvements that we've had operationally. One, we're paying people a lot better, so we're getting better quality, getting college students that are driven back a lot more.
Yeah.
So that's been an improvement the last couple of years but also like just paying closer attention to that, because it's a customer experience, guest experiencing. Nobody wants to wait forever in line. I mean, you're gonna have lines because it's an amusement park. But
before you told me that it was like structurally there, I was thinking like, how do you like make that decision? I know that has to be area of the park. What's suitable for what you want. It was a huge
space, and you needed a big space because you wanted a big time coaster. So that was part of it. It was the maintenance, the mechanic, structural challenges.
I was wondering if it was people just weren't riding it anymore.
And that was part of it too. I mean, everybody. It's one of those things. Everybody asks, do you like the log jammer? Pretty much everyone's going to say yes, because again, it was not too thrilling.
But as an adult, I didn't ride it much.
You weren't going to ride it because as an adult, how do you really want to get that wet?
Ugh.
So unless
do you remember being a young kid and going on the Raging Rapids and walking around with
just didn't care. My kids are like that now.
And I'm just like,
I was down. Yeah, I rode. It was at SeaWorld a few weeks ago and rode their Raging Rapids ride, and it was like, and my middle son was not tall enough for the coasters there, so that was like his consolation. And we got hooked up with the fast passes, so it was like I went on it twice back to back with him because he couldn't ride much else, and I'm like, this is the last thing I want to do is get soaking wet. Thankfully, it was 85 degrees there.
Yeah, so it's all right. But here, if you're Kennywood and you ride the Pittsburgh Plunge or something, I remember being a young kid and being like, this is the best. But now,
I'm soaking wet.
If I have a wet sock, I'm like, my whole day is ruined.
Yeah. No. So unless it was like, 85, this was a really hot day, the ride didn't have very much of a line. It wasn't that popular, you know, and that's just the reality. And then of course we announced we were taken out. And this was again, one of the like, fails of, we gave people 2 days to visit the park to ride it. We didn't do the Goodbye Summer, which was a huge missed opportunity from a marketing standpoint.
Yeah.
And it was another one that was just like, I remember we had conversations. I, was brought into conversations even before that season going into, it was 2017, going into 2017 where this was maybe a thing. And I said my piece because I thought it was again, like a really good glue ride. That's, people like log flumes. They're really accessible. They're fun rides.
Log what?
Flumes. That's what they're called in the industry. Is
log flume.
A flume ride. Like
Oh, wow.
Cause it's like, that's, and it comes from like actually like the timber industry and would do stuff like that. They'd send them through like these kind of chutes to transport stuff like that. And they just turned it into a ride, but they were huge in the 60s and 70s was kind of like the golden age. That's when the log jammer came in the 70s. But it ultimately we gave people 2 days notice, so there was a lot of bad blood and frustration.
I don't remember seeing that as much.
It was big for me for sure.
Oh yeah, I'm sure you hear everything.
It was. I think for some people they would talk to you about it on the level of the catch up or some of the other things. But it was again kind of like this, unforced challenge that we had. But we got through it, and it was those last 2 days. My point that I was trying to get to, the lines were humongously long because there was a lot of people that really wanted to get their last ride on it.
How do you consume your media? Like, are you someone, because you're involved with it, that you wake up every day and like kind of look at like, what's going on? If people are like, are you just like looking at Kennywood headlines and everything?
I was and I was at that point, I was a social media lead, and I was like kind of the only person for our social, which is like a terrible, not great in itself, because like you talked about it a little bit, it can be taxing to just like, and I am not
always weighing in your mind,
compartmentalizing and setting aside like, the Kennywood opinion versus what people think personally of me. Like I take it upon myself sometimes. So it was, there was definitely a lot of reaction and feedback, but we were talking about this in light of the coaster. So that, it ended up the log jammer went away, and, we had to kind of, that instead of being this opportunity, there was certainly some people that were turned and look forward to the future, but, we got that more with time, and we were able to start transitioning to like teasing what was going to come and things like that. So ultimately that came about, I guess my point, the kind of the decision was made, probably towards the third quarter or so of 2017, that the coaster that would become the steel curtain was going to come in. And so so everything started clearing, working towards that, clearing the site, starting to, install stuff and build stuff. And then it was summer of 2018 that we made the announcement for that. So that was, and it opened summer 2019. So in all, it was only like a 2-year process, which I think is really fast.
That's crazy to think about with how big it is, and like, how it was put together. Like it's a badass roller coaster.
Yeah.
Like I've ridden it a few times, and the one day I was there, I went whenever it was raining, and it like rained for about 40 minutes in the morning, and then it was just perfect and overcast. It was like 55 all day, and no one was there. Me and my wife got on the ride, got off, waited for 5 more minutes, and got on again. Yeah, and it really is an amazing roller coaster.
Yeah, it's a great ride. It's super thrilling. It does the upside downs, the inversions. A lot of times I find like they can feel going in, you think the inversion is going to be the most exciting part of a coaster, and then a lot of coasters you just go through them and it's kind of underwhelming, at least for me. But on the curtain they managed to like thread them all together and part of the ride that it's like they're thrilling without like, I'm getting older now, so it's not but without necessarily coming off feeling extra nauseous.
Yeah, are you someone who like
I can't do the spinning and circular rides very well.
I used to ride the Aero 360 a million times. If I rode that now, I'd throw up immediately.
Your equilibrium definitely gets weaker as you get older.
It's crazy.
But yeah, so the curtain is nice because it does have a level of re-rideability that sometimes you don't find from rides that are that wild.
Yeah.
But it also has like, it's got big drops, it's got big speed, so it's got like all the different elements. It's a great roller coaster for sure.
Absolutely. It's cool to hear.
We really needed it. We needed another kind of like partner to the Phantom.
Yeah, for sure. Because obviously the Phantom was like, that was the top tier. You go there, that was a top tier. I remember whenever like the Pitfall got put into play, and I remember that was a big deal.
Right.
Like I loved that ride.
Yep.
And then the Exterminator was cool whenever that got brought in. When was that? Was that like 2006?
Exterminator was like 99.
99.
Yeah.
99. Jeez, I was 9 years old. I guess I'm getting older too. But it's wild to like kind of hear the inside baseball as far as like, just the seed of that getting planted in like 2015.
Yeah.
And then it taking that long to like try to, make that, make that happen.
Yeah.
It's cool to hear about like, the process of taking away some of these rides, because as Pittsburghers, their superpower is nostalgia, like you said. Some people get crazy, whether it be ketchup or the log jammer. And I feel like it's very important to realize how these decisions are made, rather than just like, I feel like a lot of people are just like, they don't even take in consideration what's going on. Like they're just pulling out rides. But realistically, you want to hear like how that is as a listener myself. It's like,
yeah, there's tons of there's tons of thought that goes into it, and even as we talked about some of the ownership. I mean, there's a lot of born and raised people, especially at the park levels of leadership. Even as we've gotten some fresh blood in, that's been really important and beneficial. A lot of the on the ground, hands on people are Pittsburghers, and people that started working at Kennywood as teenagers. So there is a lot of that personal passion and insight, but you're never going to keep everybody happy.
Absolutely.
So you just continue working at it, and I think I'm really excited now in the future, because again, I think that there's much more of a grasp of recognition, and these people, like the corporate office moved its headquarters here to Pittsburgh, so they're in the community now, and they're here,
wow.
and they hear from people, they wearing their company polos in the stores and stuff like that, and having conversations. So I think there's much better feel for like how much people care. And even like, some of the people that have come in, a lot of them were from kind of the Bush. They've come from all different, big chains, like the Cedar Fair, Cedar Point chain, and the Six Flags, where people that work for Six Flags come in, but probably more so from the Busch SeaWorld parks, and they've closed. They've been part of, closing long-term popular attractions in their, previous roles. And so they, had an idea, okay, this is what it's going to be like, and people will be upset and fired up, but they'll get over it, move on. And it's like, but yet, like they come in like, man, I have never seen a level of passion that, and I thought I knew, because I worked at this park that's been around for generations and has these popular attractions. And I remember, this ride closing, and people were crying and begging us. And
it's weird. It is weird.
And so they thought they had an expectation, and they come in and like, wow, like this is different. Even like school picnics, we all think of the school picnics, we take them for granted. And if a new superintendent comes in from out of town and tries to take the school picnic off the calendar, like the people come out with the pitchforks and the torches to the school board meeting about that.
I think it's the beauty about us.
That doesn't happen in a lot of those places, because if you stop and think about it, like you just take a day off school that's a field trip to an amusement park, but there's not actually, you're just going to the amusement park, not leaving like a physics day type of deal. Like who does that anymore?
But, I love that. That was
we still do it in Pittsburgh, and a lot of places they don't do those anymore.
Yeah, it's crazy. I feel like that's like something that is like, that's just like the start of your freedom. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I remember going to Kennywood, spending my money, draining myself all the way down, coming home and having the best sleep ever.
Yep.
And then you're just like, all right, it's summer now. We're going to have a great time.
Yep.
But I don't know. It's a cool place because, you have that like, you have the new steel curtain with like the new innovative stuff. And then you have like, the Thunderbolt, and you're just like, you have that like both, like with the racers and everything. It's awesome to hear. Mm-hmm. I hear that the Thunderbolt is going to have two cars going this year. Yeah. It's a big deal.
It is.
It's like you were saying, I don't know where I was doing my research, but I saw that you were saying that, that results in, shorter lines,
right?
Which is realistically, that's what everyone, I feel like that's like the pillar of people's, experience, barometer is like, if you have short lines, if you go to Kennywood with a short line, don't matter what happens. If the lines are short, you're having a good day. Right. You know what I mean? Going through what's the mindset as far as like, these old archaic type roller coasters being, a nostalgic concentrated dose compared to like, wanting to like update things? Because I feel like, are the two wooden roller coasters, is there only like a handful in the United States anymore?
I mean, there's a lot of roller coasters. You're not going to find very many that have the track record that our three have.
Yeah.
Obviously, and that's always one of my big selling points is 3 coasters that date back to the 1920s.
Yeah.
And I'm not aware of any park that can boast that. I mean, few can say they have one, right?
Yeah.
The Jackrabbit's the 6th oldest coaster in the world that's still
Really?
operating. Yeah. So
wow.
We have that's a lot, and I think everybody, even sometimes when the corporate leadership was not as tuned in, and they recognize this is kind of how your bread gets buttered. This is, above all else, your unique selling proposition is these attractions. And yes, it's the Phantom's Revenge and adding things like the Steel Curtain, but those 3 coasters are along with a couple other attractions, really the heart and soul of the park. And so and it's funny because I say nobody, it's not like the Jackrabbit got built and said, oh, this is going to be, this is going to be what gets us through the next 100 years type of deal. But it just was always so popular, and that there was never a reason to get rid of it.
Yeah, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Exactly. And there are there's fun stories you can go down about I think the Racer has been tapped for, or proposed for removal a number of times over, what's been close to a century now. And it's ultimately never happened. At one point, what they decided to do instead was take the Pippin and upgrade it into what's now the Thunderbolt, so that's
what it was, the Pippin.
It was called the Pippin. It opened in 1924. And so it was basically the part of the ride, the part of the Thunderbolt that's out of view that you can't really see from the midway was the Pippin. So they extended it, made it a bigger, better souped up ride. The 2 turns, we call the 2 helixes, or some people call it the spaghetti bowl. That are by the potato patch. That's part of the new, and absolutely. That's one of the best photo spots in the park to me, and the most single images that signifies Kennywood is a Thunderbolt coming screaming down that turn by the potato patch,
especially at night with the light.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's it's well, what's so special about the potato patch? And it's well, kind of nothing, right? So they're just basic potatoes with the cheese sauce and bacon or whatever you put on it.
Yeah.
But it's part of sitting there, and you can smell the grease
Refueling.
from the Thunderbolt, and you hear the horn from Noah's Ark, and then the Thunderbolt comes roaring down past you, and it's all of this. That's what makes the potato patch so special. It's what makes the experience so special. It's all these things, and it's they haven't, and that area is, you've got Noah's Ark there, you've got the turtle, you've got the Thunderbolt, the patch, the Phantoms, looming overhead. And it's just there's few other places that you want to be. And I'd say, I go to say the summer, but it's become an almost an all year thing at this point, which is awesome too.
Oh yeah. It really is incredible to just the vibe of it is pretty much, you can't compete with it. And then you have, so I'm curious that I believe, this is before your time, but Adventureland gets filmed at Kennywood.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's another thing that's pretty epic that happens there, especially for us, for Pittsburghers. It's wild to see. Yeah. And, I know you probably might not know all the process, but it's what is a process if someone wanted to film stuff there? It's I know that they said that filmed from October to 2007 to December of 2007.
Yeah.
So obviously the park is closed.
Yep.
Do you have any idea, what that's like?
Yeah, I mean, it is a process. I've been involved in some, not to the scale of Adventureland, but I've been involved in some things like that, and it is a process. I've heard stories about it, and it is something that, there's people that you can, if you bring it up now, even now, because it's
it got to be a beast.
Big production, and that was they want it to look like the summer, so they're now obviously filming during the fall. So they were they had silk leaves or something like that, fake leaves that they put on the trees to make it look like it was the summertime, and people are walking around in shorts and t-shirts and freezing their butts off.
It's cool that happened though.
But yeah, it was really neat, and it put the park on the map and level of awareness for a lot of other a lot outside the area.
Has any other films ever been made there? Any other bigger scale films?
No, bigger scale, no. I think there was, I haven't seen it personally, but the film Roller Coaster, I think it was a film from the 70s.
Roller Coaster
had wanted to film at Kennywood, and they passed on it. We did actually, not a few months before the world shut down, like fall of 2019, we had a movie shoot there that it was more of an independent film, but like an independent film with funding. And actually, like my very first year, my first like few months in the job, I actually like met with these people, like, you know, that had, they're like, we've got this film we want to do. It's based on a book that was about Pittsburgh. You know, it was like you know, and it was, some of the book was set in Kennywood, and we just want to film these few scenes here. And it was like, oh, this is cool. This is great. And then, like, you know, things just went on. The summer continued, and hear from them for years. Every once in a while, it like pop back up, and they'd like, you know, and then it finally in 2019, they're like, we're good. Like, we got all our funding. Like, this is happening, you know.
It's called Pittsburgh, right?
No, this film, it's called Dear Zoe.
Oh, wait. Oh, well, I looked at, that was probably one of the other documents or documentaries or something like that it came up on the Wikipedia.
Okay.
That I was looking at. Because I was looking at movies filmed in there, and there was only a few that came up. Obviously, Kennywood Memories came up, and then Adventureland, but I didn't see that one on there.
So, yeah, and it hasn't really, it was supposed to kind of debut, I think, during 2020. They filmed at the park for 2 days. It would have been October, or like October of 2019. You know, it was kind of like my pitch of it is, because I've never read the book or anything like that, but it's kind of like a little bit of The Perks of Being a Wallflower, which is another Pittsburgh film. Yeah, great. Yeah, good movie. But that's kind of what it reminded me of. But it was just a much smaller scale.
That's cool.
But it ended up, you know, that they, you know, it came together. We were able to, you know, and I'm kind of like the liaison where it's like, I kind of want this to happen because it seems cool and fun.
Yeah.
But recognizing like it is a big pain in the process, and so it's like, okay, what do we have to? How much does the park have to get for it to be worth our time? We got to make sure that, like, you know, because they're going to need, you know, they want certain things to be operational and going, so it's going to be other people's time and be on site. So what's their time going to be, and does it take away from, like, you know, we're open for Halloween at this point, so we got to make sure that we don't, you know, lose any opportunity and all that stuff. But we were able to kind of make it work. And then it hasn't really, you know, made much of its public appearance because of COVID and things like that. But I did just hear from it's going to be at a film festival, and I think that in Arizona, that it's going to have a couple, a couple screenings of, and I'm hopeful that, like, you know, someday that it, you know, that it continues to, you know, again, they're 2 years later, finally kind of getting off the mat from all that industry, the movie industry has had to go through COVID.
Yeah, that's crazy in itself.
You know, not necessarily want to, like, you know, the people didn't want to just put it on Amazon and be done with it.
Yeah, it makes sense.
For, like, you know, film festivals and screening.
Putting your heart and soul in it for years. You want to have a proper
and it was
debut.
really like a passion for you know, the guys who the one guy was from the Pittsburgh area and has been out in California. He's involved with, like, a film festival in Napa. You know, but I'm hopeful that, like, we're at some point, maybe it's this summer, maybe it's, you know, a year
eventually
down the road, that we're talking about it in Pittsburgh, because I could certainly see. I mean, you know, Pittsburgh loves things about Pittsburgh and 100%. But yeah, I mean, I got to meet, you know, some Theo Rossi, who is like an actor from Sons of Anarchy, and the Luke Cage Netflix show, and some other things.
Wow.
And oh gosh, I'm gonna forget her name. I should have looked at this. I didn't.
That's all right. I'll look it up. Sadie Sink?
Sadie Sink, that's it. Yeah, the alliteration. I was like looking for the alliteration in my head. So I got to meet her, and I haven't. They talked me into playing a security guard in the movie. So we'll see if
that's your first
my
debut.
Camera. I was just to walk across the bridge in Lost Kennywood at night.
That's awesome.
And have a weird look on my face. So we'll see. I told them they're like, oh, you're doing so great. I'm like, no, this is awful, and you're gonna cut this.
Do you have celebrity experiences there where, like, people that come in want to just like come in? Has anyone ever, like, closed the park and, like, rented it out for themselves?
In my time, Wiz Khalifa did my first year. I was actually not there when he came through. But that's probably in terms of a celebrity closing the park. A lot of times it's, you know, sometimes they'll, like, reach out to you. Their people will reach out to you before. But sometimes they just show up.
That's awesome.
It just depends on the person, and the level of celebrity, for sure.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so I've got to meet a few interesting people, for sure.
Now, as far as, like, you know, you talk about the rides and everything like that, the other things, like, I didn't even want to get into Fright Night. I'm hoping that I could muscle you back in here for October to try to like get another one going, so we could even go down that path, because I feel like it's a whole different beast.
Right.
But as far as, like, you know, the rides and all the other attractions and like the games and everything, I see you have like some partnerships. Like I see Millie's is in there. Okay. So it's like, what's like the mindset on, bringing, outside businesses like that in? Because I feel like it would be mutually beneficial for people to like want to, Millie's is a huge Pittsburgh name. People love it. And, obviously for Kennywood, that's another great thing to have in there. But I know that, has there been other like partnership type things like that? Like I don't remember a lot of like outside, like businesses coming in and like putting their stuff in there.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's another thing that's it's a balance, and it's, and something that's evolving and changing over time. There have been some others that were in place. It's definitely more common now. And I think like if you go to other amusement parks, again, it's a real common thing that you see, these third parties and stuff like that. But it's always trickier. It's been trickier at Kennywood because again, it's of the brand itself of the park and kind of this mindset of that was always Kennywood's unique selling proposition for many years because you couldn't just keep expanding and become a Cedar Point type of park.
You want to keep it. You want to keep it the right people and the right feeling.
If the park had been built, in a more location where it could just keep expanding physically, then maybe it would have been, but it wasn't. So it kind of got into this where it had to be, how did it stand out and differentiate from other parks? And it's, and it's done it in the way it has, obviously, with where history and tradition plays a big part in that, even as it does have the new and exciting rides. But, there's a reason that you work with brands like that because you get that name recognition and awareness that's already built in affinity. And like Rita's is a great example. We've got a couple of Rita's places in the park. And I remember when I first started and people, the food director would, told me at one point, it's like, people complain sometimes like, oh, you shouldn't have these outside brands and, corporate things in here because it's just supposed to be Kennywood. And we don't want to, we want like this simpler, peaceful time and like, the illusion of, this point when everything was unique and mom and pop and, so you just go into a stand that's only at Kennywood, and people will say that, but then like when it comes down to it, like you bring in a Rita's and they will do a lot more business than, because people have that awareness and affinity. And as many people will say, oh, I just want this unique place that I can only get there. A lot of other people that maybe aren't as vocal will say, oh, Rita's, let's get Rita's.
People also just want options.
Yeah, they want options. So, and some of it is functional where, too, because, in this kind of day and age, some of them like Rita's, like Millie's, I mean, they hire their own staff.
Yeah.
So it's one fewer stand that you have to find people for. And when you're looking for 1,000 or, in some years it was as much as 1,500 people. When you're looking for that many people, like, you have to, it doesn't
Makes
hurt
sense.
to say, hey, this stand, Millie's is going to run it now, and they're gonna hire their own people and do it their way. But it's been great too. I think I was really excited when I found out we're working with Millie's because we've done some of that in the past. And it wasn't necessarily with a local Pittsburgh brand, which then leads to these outsiders or this you've gone corporate and all that stuff like that.
I love Millie's.
When you say Millie's, then
love
it's
it.
like, yes, I love Millie's, and it's a local, homegrown, hometown organization.
I've had Chad on here a couple times, and he's a fantastic guy.
Yeah, I met Lauren, I haven't met Chad, but yeah, they're great to work with. And they, so that was a huge step in the right direction. And we did a partnership last summer with Steel City, and they put out some Kennywood merch, which is something I think that had been like that they'd wanted to do for a long time, and it didn't weren't able to make it work for a while. But it's another example of like just partnering with more local institutions and organizations. So we'd like to continue to try to do that, even as there might be some spots where it is more like a national that comes in and makes more sense, whether it's a Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts. Because,
I like to
get the coffee in place.
Other things make more sense, but I do like to. It's cool as an outsider, as a regular Pittsburgher, to see the collaborations between people like Steel City and people like Millie's. Like I'm happy to see Millie's in there. Obviously, like I love them, and I'm a fan of what they do. But it's cool as a Pittsburgher's point of view to see like the local brands that are still doing stuff get those opportunities as well. So that's definitely something that I love to see from Kennywood. Now, what is, like, what's the goals? Like, obviously you're working on 125 years, you're giving the park a facelift, you're re-implementing the kangaroo, besides that though, I mean, what do you want to do? Just more, I mean, what does Kennywood want to do as a whole? Run more efficiently, obviously, do what you really do, the common sense things, keep making good stuff.
Yeah. I think that kind of the agenda, the goal from like a big picture standpoint. I mean, obviously it's, I almost like we provide the finest in family fun and entertainment, right? Like that's the mission statement, I mean, and so how do you go about doing that? And so that's like in its basic form is we want just people to have like a good experience when that they want to come, that we're doing what we need to do from a marketing standpoint and an operational standpoint, that they are driven to come in the first place, and then to have a great experience when we get there. And like, that's, that might be like really, no duh, Nick, but that's like, you almost want to say that to make sure that that's like, to start any conversation starts there. But like, what does that mean? And like, getting more into the granular, I think right now is an emphasis on like, it's still a relatively new product in Pittsburgh. And for Kennywood, like we want people to go for that season pass. We want it to be like an automatic to where like, in every Pittsburgher's wallet is a season pass to go to Kennywood or to go to all three of the parks. And to make sure, and yes, we want people to continue, to do that school picnic or that, company outing that once a year, but we want more than that, and so we're trying to create like a reason to visit beyond like the standard Kennywood rides experience, all throughout the year. We mentioned Fright Night, which is now Phantom Fall Fest. So it's kind of been expanded to have a more, appeal to a wider audience, wider age range, holiday lights throughout the year. But then, in the summer, adding a lot of these, we're adding these food festivals. Last year we added Bites and Pints, which was weekends in June, and we installed these permanent booths all around the lagoon, and they had during the event specialty cuisines, kind of like a different ethnic cuisine at each booth.
That's cool.
And drinks, we've expanded. There's a lot more alcohol sales at Kennywood than there used to be, which, some people might freak out about. But ultimately it's something that's normal, commonplace at parks all over the country.
Go to a Penguin game, people want to have a beer.
Right. And it's not like, and so it's been very smooth. And, I think for some people it's like, hey, waiting in line. How did we wait in line? Or how did I wait in line without a hurricane? Because we were, serving things like that. And, and it was very orderly, right? There wasn't the doomsdays that some people might have thought there would be when they heard that Kennywood is going to sell alcohol. So having that experiential of, food and like get there now or you'll miss it food, but also repeatable. So it's not just you have to come this day or this weekend, but you have like, this
different options,
these 4 days a week for a 4-week period to get there. But you can only get this food or this drink at this time. And then also adding in more entertainment, and Kennywood has in its history, you can hear a lot of old timers or people talk about like seeing shows and entertainment at the park. But I think for like people your age, my age, Kennywood hasn't been as much of an entertainment or a show park. And I think we want to get back to adding that too, because that, if you weren't a rider, you didn't really have as much reason to go. Because I just don't really ride. What else is there to do? I'm not just going to, pay to sit on the bench.
I spent so much time watching, like, I remember the show that was there was like the Lumberjack show. I remember that was probably the last one that I remember that was a live show, but I remember I loved them. Like anytime I ever seen anything like that, I would just be infatuated because like whether it be the people jumping into like pools or, doing the Lumberjack show, it's just like a way to sit down because you're walking around all day, you're hot, it's usually like you need a second, there was nothing that I enjoyed more. I would get my chicken strips and fries and I would go and walk over there and watch these people cut up logs. It's just cutting wood down. They're doing work, but I was entertained by it. That was my last like point I was going to bring up is like, I don't ever remember a lot of live shows, but I know that, over by the potato patch, there's that stage where you'll have like, I believe there was like magicians last time I seen something there.
Do stuff like that.
Is that like, I'm happy to hear that like, that's going to be something that is going to be thought about a little bit more and expanded on more, because that was something that I really do enjoy as a park goer.
Yeah, so that's like a big point of emphasis now. We announced this past week that we're going to have a spring festival. So when the park opens, it's called Swing into Spring, and it is like you've got, bands performing every night and like other entertainment. You've got those booths that I mentioned before. We'll have, some specialty items you can only get during the spring festival, and kind of like then micro events within the event. So like there's car shows a couple days, there's a park wide scavenger hunt a couple days that you can, go and participate in. And so it's like these reasons to visit above the reasons to visit. And yeah, you want to appeal to, people that aren't necessarily into riding, whether it's, seniors, having, there's no reason for me to pay to come and visit, I'm not going to ride. Well, you can go and see these shows, or just adults, I think a big thing, that we all go through cycles. Like you go every year growing up, and then a lot of people, and I was like this for myself, like, I was kind of Kennywooded out. And so I didn't go for years. And partly I didn't live in the area for a part of that, but I didn't go for years until, when I had a kid. And then it's like, I want to take my kid to Kennywood and experience that.
It's like a circle of life.
Starts the cycle again, and you go with the kid, and then, and then your kids grow, and then people might not go for a while until then they have grandkids, right? And then you want to take your grandkids, you want to experience that. And so, but trying to catch people, especially not like kids, people are having kids later, people aren't having as many kids. So how do we get like those people to come in? And that was like, because they might like roller coasters, but they're not going to they're not thinking to seek that out. But like if we say, hey, check out these like specialty food items, or like come see your favorite band and have a drink, and, and grab a couple coaster rides while you're at it. It's a great, cause it's a great date opportunity.
Yeah.
People might not think about it as like top of mind as a date opportunity, but it's
probably literally the best one.
It really is a great. There's even like studies, like you said.
Well, think about how dumb it is. People are obviously like, oh, let's go to the movies. You don't get to talk to no one there. You're sitting in line.
Made that mistake so many times in my dating life.
That's just like that was programmed like in a movie, like a cinematic visualization of a date. Let's go to a movie, and you're like, I never understood that as a young person, because I was like, you don't get to talk to people. Right. But if you go to Kennywood, you're waiting in lines, and then you have to sit next to each other anyway.
Hold me as I'm in terror on the roller coaster,
it's like
right?
You eat some good food. Yeah, there's literally nothing better than that. Yeah. It's really great. Last thing that I want to talk to before we get to the ending segment. So I love the Sky Coaster. Okay, I think that is a fascinating thing. When did that come into play?
Sky Coaster opened in like the mid 90s.
Yeah.
And it's got a good story around it, but I don't know how deep I should go into it. But it was at the time was the first permanent Sky Coaster installation in the country. And it's like a great, story about the guy who built it kind of ran out of money. He spent like time in that winter, like sleeping in his van on property, because he kind of like didn't have the funds for anything else. And that guy, like, he sold his company and like has private jets now.
Wow.
So it really is taken, took off over the years. But was actually initially planned to just be there for a year or two, and then, go to Sandcastle was like some of the
really
thought behind it. So, yeah.
Wow, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
That's a wild ride. Do you ride that?
I've done it a couple times. Yeah. Yeah.
For people that have not done it, it really is like, it's wild.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's one, I not to didn't come on with the intent of breaking news, but since you brought it up, it's something that hasn't opened, didn't open the last 2 years with COVID and the pandemic, and people getting close to in close quarters to strap in and all that stuff like that, and it just has been something as we've continued to evolve and look at it. Now the steel curtain runs like right alongside it, and so
you're telling me it's going away.
It's probably not going to open this year.
That's fair.
What the future holds for it long term is not totally decided. But I don't want to like talk it all up here and then somebody come out this summer to do the Sky Coaster, and it probably won't be open. You'll see it there, but it probably won't be open. But
to be fair,
exactly what its future has not been fully decided at this point.
I haven't ridden in a long time, but like if people had their chance to ride.
Yeah, and I mean, we kind of look at it as like, it is an upcharge attraction, and so like our first focus is like running and opening the rides that are part of the experience. And it is partly being an upcharge attraction was going to be a more limited audience, just for the thrill level and for the extra charge on it. So like I said, what exactly the future holds for it, isn't certain, but I wouldn't expect to come and do it this year.
That's fair too. Okay, so to ending on a positive note. So before I get to the desert island questions, I have a gift for you. This gift is partly brought to you by Zed's, which is a vintage spot down in Southside. I'm real good friends with the owner and his brother and the people that work there. Really great people. But I knew you were coming over. And I hit them up and I was like, what kind of Kennywood swag you got down there? What kind of vintage Kennywood swag? Let me come down. He was like, I got a bin upstairs that I'm holding. It's never been looked at. He was like, come on down. I got you. I have you this gift.
Thank you.
You're the Kennywood guy.
You're making me feel bad because I'm the one. I should be bringing you Kennywood swag.
That's all right. Don't worry about it.
To get you an arrow for the studio in here.
That's what you need, a Kennywood arrow. Now, this shirt.
Oh, wow.
Legendary.
Vintage, yeah.
I mean, I've never seen anything like that. He's never seen anything like that. But, I'll take a picture and post it on social media.
That's a pretty good, accurate portrayal of the Phantom too. You got Noah's Ark with the whale mouth.
Yeah.
Everything.
I thought it was a cool shirt.
Very cool.
Got you some stickers in there, but shout out to Zed's down at Southside. A wonderful vintage shop that also carries some dope sneakers and anything else you need. But to get to the ending segment, I do an ending segment with everyone. It's called Desert Island Questions. I'll get you out of here. Okay, so are you tight to leave right now?
No. Okay. I was just curious. Yeah.
Okay. You probably didn't even think we were talking that long, did you?
Right. It's a breeze, man.
It's professional over here. Okay, so first category, so desert island questions. Whenever I give each guest 3 categories to take with them on a desert island and use until they starve to death and die.
Okay.
First thing is 3 movies to take on a desert island. Favorite of all time.
3 movies.
Yep.
This is tricky. I don't want to wait for too long.
No, I'm going to cut on any downtime.
Ideas popped into my head. I'm like, no, it's what's the.
This is the situation. You have a little 12 by 12 TV and an integrated DVD player, but you're there every day and you only have 3 DVDs.
I'm going to go, since you said 3, I'm going to go a little off the beaten path. I haven't watched 2 of the 3 in quite some time, but I'm getting a little bit back into it and going back to some of my nerdiness that I mentioned earlier. I will say I'll take the Lord of the Rings trilogy.
Man.
The original 3.
I just listened to an interview with Dominic, who plays
Mary. Yeah.
And I watched them all when they came out, but I haven't watched them. I probably only seen them all once.
Yeah.
And I'm going to revisit them very soon.
Yeah. So, and my dad read me The Hobbit when I was probably 5-6 years old.
Oh,
so
really?
I've read that book. I just read it again. I read it to my son. We just finished it a few months ago now. So that was the book I've probably read The Hobbit specifically probably 15 times, and the other books of the trilogy a number of times.
He was literally just talking about, he was like, if you love the movie, if you think the movie's a 10 out of 10, he said the book is,
oh my gosh,
it's constantly referred to as the greatest book ever written.
It's amazing.
I know. I need to, and just by the way that him and this other comedian, Bobby Lee, were talking about it, I need to revisit the movies again.
Yeah. So I watched the first one, a few months ago with my kids, because okay, when we finish the Hobbit book, then we can we'll watch the Hobbit movies too, which were okay, but not anywhere near the original Lord of the
Selfish
Rings
parent,
movies.
You're like, hey, this is the best movie. Read.
That's right. But then we watched the first one, and we still need to watch the second too. The next.
Did he like it?
Oh yeah, they liked it a lot. They
cool.
liked it a lot. Yeah.
They so
more
Lord
Harry
of the
Potter,
Rings,
obviously, because they're older, or younger. But yeah,
I love a Harry Potter.
Those are good ones too. Yeah.
But I'll give you Lord of the Rings.
Okay.
Now you got to pick 2 more choices.
Okay. Oh, okay. So you're gonna make that just one.
Oh yeah, 3. Yeah. I'm not gonna let you get out that easy.
Oh yeah. Okay. All right. All right. Well, then I will say, Wedding Crashers.
Amazing.
Something to laugh.
I just watched that again. We rented a Airbnb that had no service or anything, and they had a little DVD case. I swear to God, we watched My Big Fat Greek Wedding, Shrek, The Patriot,
Yeah.
and Wedding Crashers, and some other dumb movies. But it's just like just random stuff to watch. But Wedding Crashers is an elite movie. I heard rumors that they're going to make a second.
I wouldn't surprise me. That's the world we live in. Could they put lightning back in the bottle? I don't know. But
No way. It will never be as good. Bradley Cooper, a psychopath, the best.
Lock it up.
Yeah.
Lock it up. Yeah, absolutely. No, that would go on there. And last one. So I might regret it, but just to keep it light, because I would say something like Goodfellas, but like,
yeah,
I don't know, that might be a little too dark for the desert.
Every day, over and over again.
So, and I'm going to go with kind of the recent flair again. And I'm going to say, and people might throw a virtual brick at me, but I'm going to say Encanto.
Encanto.
It came out just recently.
Pixar.
Disney movie. No, it's not the Pixar one. It's a Disney one, but it's the songs are like, I think the world by storm. It seems like.
I think is that the one is that the one where they say don't talk about Bruno?
We don't talk about Bruno. Yeah,
that's okay.
So and it is like, and so that I might regret it because it might not be good to have the songs, but I watched it with my kids probably like a month and a half ago now, and I am still like singing the songs. Like I listen to songs.
That's fair.
Like it's stuck in my head. So.
I still actively watch. Do you watch like a lot of the Pixar movies and stuff?
Some, yeah. We did just watch the other one that just came out. I think it's called Turning Red. It like just hit the Disney Plus.
Did you watch?
So watch it with my kids.
Did you watch Coco?
Not really. I mean, like they put it on and we kind of watched some of it, but I guess it was harder to stick with it.
Yeah, I love that one.
Capture us as much.
And then there was another one called Soul that came out that was about like jazz music.
It was kind of the same. It was like
I don't know how they like directed that towards children. It like made me feel
like,
some type of way.
they're like more like serious and like
it was serious as a heart attack,
right? And so it's like like I'm more of a Toy Story guy.
Yeah,
like, give me like that might have been
That's
like,
fair.
If
That's
I
fair.
Reconsider it, I'd take Toy Story over.
That's fair. Okay, 3. So the second category, I usually ask people what 3 books, but you can answer that. But I'm curious, your 3 favorite rides.
My 3 favorite rides, I'll say that. I mean, the Kangaroo, the Jackrabbit, and I'll just do one roller coaster. So I'll do the Jackrabbit instead of and leave the Phantom off. Although that would be the third. But I'll put one out there for Noah's Ark. Because it's again just like such a wild and unique thing, and I got to be part of like, we brought the whale back. That was my my second season there. So it's like
you had to buy it back.
No, I mean it was rebuilt. It was.
You brought it back.
We brought it back.
I thought you said you bought it back like some crazy guy who had a lot of money was like, I want to buy that off you.
No.
But I'm pumped Ian's brought it back because like that was epic.
That's what it's like. People say, you got rid of the log jammer and you got rid of this and that, and and sometimes it's like it's hilarious to see the people that are still like that. Ever since that Paradise came around, like I actually do anything but like stand out and either take the adulation or the ridicule depending on the situation. But it was really cool to be part of that because I know that was one of my childhood memories too. Was going there for the first year after it like got redone, and you're like, wait, where's the whale?
Yeah, definitely.
I don't think that's what they thought they were going to get too in the 90s when they went that route. But that was
that's
for 20 years
though.
they heard bring back the whale. So it's a really fun and unique ride too. So those would be my 3.
I was thinking my 3 favorite rides of all time there. One was the Magic Carpet. I loved that more than anything.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
That was a wild ride. I also love the Exterminator, and I think the Pitfall was probably, one of my favorite. I think I was just like in that like age where you're like young enough where you're like, I could die on this right now. And then you're just like, holy, that's crazy.
Yeah, and those are cool rides too. I mean, those are popular, and it's like sometimes it's like reductive, and I say this internally too. It's like it might seem like lazy to like just bring back all the old rides, but I mean that's kind of what people want, like we talked about.
People are wearing fanny packs again. They're bringing it. Everything's coming back in full circle.
So we'll see what the future holds, but and those are also, some of those are like good. The glue attractions, So I say, hey, let's do a drop tower. We'll see if that happens. But when they ask me for my 2 cents,
what? Third category: 3 CDs to take on a desert island.
CDs. Oh my goodness. I would say the Blue Album, Weezer.
Yeah,
for sure. Probably say I'm kind of like, I listen to the like WYEP here locally, and like the kind of indie music more so is my scene. So A Ghost Is Born is an album by Wilco.
Okay.
That I would say, and Be Abbey Road.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good. That's a good variety. Third to last category is I ask people what your favorite snack is of all time. If you're going on a road trip, and you go in, this is the last snack you could ever have, what is it?
Popcorn.
That's what you go for?
And not like one of the gourmet popcorns, but like go to the back aisle of Giant Eagle and they've got
the
like
5-pound bag.
that's
what you love?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely.
Okay. That's fair. Yeah. That's good stuff. Are you a popcorn guy at the movies?
Oh yeah. Butter popcorn. And I'm like the one that's like, now I'm like, all right guys, I'm sneaking out to go get that free refill. I'm
right?
Extra. Like we're getting it for the way home. And I'm like, I'm not eating dinner tonight. I'm just
100%.
popcorn. Yeah.
Okay. So, second to last category is the death row meal. Now, before this, I know you love that.
Undertaker vibes, yeah.
So I want to tell you, I actually want to play this for you. I asked Sally Wiggin what her favorite food was, what her death row meal was, and I'm going to play it.
My favorite meal. Oh, I know what it is. Oh, unfortunately it is, but it's beef. It's beef. Corn dogs. That's my favorite meal.
Kennywood corn dogs.
Yes, that's exactly it. Kennywood. That's my favorite meal. That's
Talking
my
to
favorite
Kennywood
meal.
on Sunday.
Kennywood corn dogs. Yes.
Kennywood corn dog.
100%.
From Sally Wiggin.
And I've lived it with Sally Wiggin.
Let me
get you a corn dog on the way out. Yeah.
That's my goal.
She'll try to be like, no, I don't know. I can, I shouldn't. And then, and sometimes sometimes she does, she holds strong and doesn't have it. And sometimes she's like, go get me a corn dog. Yeah.
What a fantastic woman. But what would your death row meal be if you had to pick a, appetizer, main course, and a dessert?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Without, and let's say you're not on your dietary restrictions that you are.
Right. Appetizer, oh gosh, these are, because I'm not picky. I love food.
Me too.
I'll eat a lot of things. So, for my app, I don't know if it's quite an app, but I'll say, can I take chicken wings as an app? Or is that cheating? So I'll do some chicken wings as the app. And then my main course. Well, I have to have a side in some way of just straight up regular black olives. I want some I just want just give me a can of black olives and I'll just eat those. Yeah. Oh, I love black olives. And then, I might just go just give me the Christmas or the Thanksgiving dinner type of deal. Like
you can't really beat
give
it.
me my wife's sweet potato casserole is she makes an amazing sweet potato casserole. I'll take some turkey and the mashed potatoes and gravy.
That's perfect with
green
me.
Bean casserole.
I'd be happy with that. Some
just,
stuffing.
Just stuff my face. Yeah. Oh, my mother-in-law makes the best stuffing. It's so good. In the bird with the sausage.
You can't beat it.
It's so good. So I'll just do that, and then it taught me off for dessert just with just a nice big piece of peach pie.
Oh, that's a really good choice. Okay, last question that I ask everyone. If you could have a conversation with anyone alive or dead, who would it be and why?
Oh. That's another, I mean, these are all good, tough questions, Chad.
Oh yeah, there are. Imagine asking Sally Wiggin this and trying to make her make decisions.
Yeah. The first question, the first one that pops in my head pretty immediately, is actually Jesus. And that's like obviously a heavy choice, and it's like, well, I'll get to do that someday eventually.
Been picked on here very many times.
So that's probably the first thing that comes into my mind. And that is like, that's definitely a big part of my life, is my faith. And there's a lot down that road, obviously. But that's a little heavy. So I'm going to
that's fair
and take a lighter tack, although I still don't know exactly where I'm going to go. Who's somebody that's, I don't know. I'm like,
there's no right answer.
Yeah, no, I'm feeling like, and another, one of my things that I definitely love and get into, is history. So I'm gonna go like the history route, American history. Give me George Washington.
That would be a good one,
right?
Sally Wiggin picked Abraham Lincoln, and I think the week before that maybe Josh Getzoff did as well. But
you probably get a lot of that.
It would be a great answer to just sit down and just talk to George Washington, and you're just like, I don't know. It would be wild to talk to anyone from that time period and just have a conversation with the way that we speak now, compared to like, and the way that we speak and live now compared to the way that they spoke and live, and just kind of like, talk about the differences about it and see what it's like.
Yeah.
It would be wild for sure.
Absolutely.
Well, you made it through. I was persistent about this. I'm happy that this happened now, and we were able to make this come to light. But I appreciate you coming over. Please take a second and promote.
Yeah, thank you so much. Everything. It was a great experience. I'm glad that you did stay persistent. We were able to make it happen. I definitely encourage everybody, come out and to spend a day or multiple days with us at the parks this summer. Obviously, Kennywood has a lot going on. The Kangaroo coming back. We open earlier than we have in decades. We're opening Easter weekend this year.
April 17th.
If you have a season pass, you come even April 16th, which is the Saturday of that weekend, and then the 17th is Easter Sunday. So, I won't be there on Easter Sunday, like I talked about before. It's a big day for me personally and spiritually. So, but we have that going on, and then there's something extra going on every time of the year this year. I mean, you come in the spring, and the weekends and the school picnics is going to be a swing in the spring festival. Bites and Pints was really good, like a lot of extra cool foods and entertainment. The 4th of July, we'll have a new summer festival in July. There's the parades and fall fantasy, and then like the Halloween and Christmas events. So check our website there. The deals now, like they still have the payment plans available for season passes, so you can pay for it in a few payments, which is really convenient. Sandcastle's getting a new water slide this year, and is going to have a lot of freshened up and new looks as well. And that's both a short term thing of like get out and to enjoy the parks this summer. That obviously allows us to invest back into the parks, and continue to do this, because it is like we talked about that with the anniversary of the 125 years. Like it's not just supposed to be all this work we're doing. It's a lot for one off season, but the plan is not just to do the stuff one year and then we're done. It's to, do a lot more next off season too, and just continue that forward. And I mean, the leadership now, looks at this park and they have really, really high hopes and expectations. And it's not, and it's getting there by giving people really reasons to visit and have a great time while they're there. So, check us out online, the park websites, kennywood.com and Sandcastle and Idlewild. And follow the socials. I don't do as much with the social media anymore. I had my time and it kind of burned me out a little bit. So I get to just kind of monitor, but they still do a fantastic job of just putting you, in the park and behind the scenes. And so I'd encourage everybody, if you like social, make sure you're following Kennywood, Sandcastle, and Idlewild on social media. And just give us an opportunity to don't be someone that says, "Oh, I love Kennywood, but I haven't been there for so long." Get
perfect reason to come in
and experience it again.
Absolutely. I appreciate you taking the time with me.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for the opportunity, Chad.
Everyone else that's listening, appreciate it as usual. Each and every week we're back with a good guest. I'll see you next week. Thank you. Call you right back.